everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Secrets. I'm your host, Nikki Colon, and I am so happy you guys could be here today. We've got a good show for you today, the drive to discover Bigfoot. And it's a great topic. We've talked a lot about a lot of different parts of this, and I've got some great guests for you today. So let's go ahead and bring them on. Aleks Petakov, yay! Welcome to the House of Secrets. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on again, Nikki. I feel like it's been a while. It's probably been
It's
at
been a
least
while.
a few months. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are a busy man, that is for sure. And I know I keep asking him, hey, you want to come on? Hey, you want to come on? I feel like a broken record, but
No, I'm glad
you're
to
a
be able to
busy
join
guy
this
and
time.
been all over the place. So
Yeah, things have been busy. I've also been doing a little bit of a social media break for like the past month or so with the
mhm.
holidays. Really nice because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on all over the world. So it's kind of nice to sort of
Yeah.
detox a little bit from that kind of stuff, right?
I
So
know.
it's
I just barely didn't do 2 weeks, shows, and I was like, "Whoo, that felt good." Not to have to worry about the content or researching or doing all
yeah,
that. It
yeah. There's a
was
lot that
good to
goes
come
into
back
it.
to. Yeah, I have to say, I missed everybody and got back to it. Now, I also have Jonathan Rafferty from Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks, but he is running late. He got caught up in the weather, and I hear you guys got blasted with some weather over there.
Yes, yeah.
So I told him to take his time because he says, I'm going to hurry. I go, no, don't you hurry. You
Yeah,
take your
not good.
time and drive however you need to get here. So we'll
First big
put,
storm of the season, so I don't know how much they
uh,
got over in New York. I know he's up in upstate New York, but here where I'm at in New Hampshire, we got about 8 or 9 inches. So I was just telling you before the show,
yeah.
I was just out snow blowing my driveway, and it's like feels like 12 degrees out there. So it's pretty cold, even
Oh,
moving the
yikes.
snow blower. But yeah, that was that was
We
not fun.
were in the 60s today,
Oh man,
and it was beautiful. I went for groceries and did all kinds of stuff. And then right now, it got cloudy like crazy. And tomorrow's supposed to be in the 30s.
oh
I'm like,
boy,
whoa, that's a big swing,
yeah.
for us
We're supposed to get a
anyway.
day in the 50s
So
this
maybe
week.
we are going to get a little snow. I know I was asked about that, and I go, well, even when we do get a flurry of snow here, it lasts 1 hour
I was gonna
and then it's
say
gone.
probably doesn't stick very long, right?
No, not at all. My kids run out there and playing it, for a whole hour and then it's gone.
Well, you can have some R's anytime you want. I'll be sure.
That's
I'm sure we'll
okay.
have plenty.
That's why I moved to El Paso. I
Yeah,
don't
right.
like the snow. I moved out of that. I mean, I
Oh
miss the
man.
mountains, but
Yep.
you have the mountains, you have the snow, so you have to
I know. It's a
deal
trade-off.
with
It's a
that.
good trade-off though in my book.
Okay, let me switch us around here a little bit. So, the topic today is I had a question. What drives you to discover Bigfoot? Because you have a lot of people who are in this for a bunch of different reasons, and they're all kind of different. So I wanted to ask a couple of good researchers, you and Jonathan, what your ideas were about what keeps you going in the field, because it can take you in a lot of different directions. And just me thinking about the topics, I had thought, well, the motivations behind the hunt about going out there and finding your own way, which could be considered your personal journey type of thing. These are not in any particular order, by the way. They were just how I was writing them on here. Um, there's a money thing, maybe uh, you are trying to work to survive and try to make this your living. There's the scientific area where you want to bring it to science or really do the research. uh, the groups that come out of it, because you end up getting attached to groups. It just happens. You have your little clique that and you end up having formed. um, ethical considerations. And in the end, I thought, well, are we asking the right questions? Are we hoping to discover this? And maybe we're not asking the right questions. I don't know. So that's where we're going to take this conversation. And we're just going to start one by one. And anybody out there who would like to join in the conversation, you're more than welcome to come and join us. Just send me a message and I'll send you the link. It's for anybody. It's going to be open, but I'm not going to drop the link in the chat. Okay. You need to know me. You need to know me. So then I will shoot you over a link. So starting off in the beginning with motivations. And there's all these different facets, right? You have some people don't really have a goal. They're just out there having fun and seeing where it takes them. But some have that different drive where maybe it's the whole success and performance side of things. I don't know, could be the clicks and views, it could be the notoriety, the getting to be at the top of that mountain, in a sea of a lot, because there's thousands of podcasts now and people, it's just grown so much in the last even 10 years.
Yeah, crazy to see. I
Just
mean, it's
blown
so
up.
crazy to see. Like, I remember even just before social media was big, that was when I first kind of started getting into armchair research. I mean, I was in middle school and high school, and that's right when Facebook and that sort of stuff was happening. And
Right.
you didn't really have many podcasts. That was kind of a novel concept. YouTube
Hmm.
was very much in its infancy, so there weren't any like YouTube shows. And it was like blogs. You'd read Steve Cole's
Yep.
blog or Crypto
Mhm.
Mundo, Lauren Coleman, Craig
Yes,
Woolheater.
yes, I
That
remember that.
was and just to see, I mean, I can't imagine even like the 20-year difference, the early days of the internet to now. I mean, how much it's grown is
Right.
crazy. Now there's so many podcasts and shows, it's impossible to even know all of the ones that are out there, let alone
Uh,
follow it all. I mean, it's
you're
totally
right.
nuts to see. So,
I know. New ones come up and I'm like, where have you been? You
right,
know? And if you click that subscribe and start watching them, you start learning more groups that are
right.
in that little group, because it's just amazing how you can go on and on. So,
It's almost kind of
you know,
cool actually, because
it
I think
is.
that it's double edged in my opinion, because you have, yes, I think it's great that almost anybody has access to being able to create stuff. And I mean, I think it's just freed up information, especially myself as a
Right.
filmmaker. I was having this discussion recently with Cliff Barrickman and Matt Pruitt on the Cliff and Bobo podcast, and we're talking about working through network TV and that kind of stuff, and how shackled you are as a person. But now, anyone can really make a film, self-distribute it, do that whole thing on their own,
Right.
which you couldn't
Yeah.
do. I mean, 10, 15 years ago is inconceivable. So I think the fact that anyone can create a podcast or a show, I mean, it speaks to the kind of, I guess, freedom that the internet has created. But there's also then the other side is we're wading through a lot of garbage, because basically anyone can just make
Yeah.
up whatever they want, right? That's also part of
Right.
it. So it's absolutely, it's like all technology, there's good and bad. I mean, AI, that's a
Hmm.
discussion that
Oh,
we're having
yeah.
more and more
Right.
frequently.
We're going to look at some of that too later
Yeah,
on. I've got some
it
examples
scares me.
that
It
have come
scares
up.
me
It's
because
getting
of what's going
better.
to, yeah. Oh,
We said it was going to get better, and it has already been changing since
yep.
late last year. It's already taken another step forward, and
I mean, we're not even in the
it's
phase where you can have
crazy.
all this crazy, crazy video that's going to be super realistic. I think we're in the end times of a period before that, right? I think if you look at, especially when the internet came about, when Photoshop came about, people could easily make stuff with Photoshop, and there's a big learning curve trying to identify. People learn, well, oh, this looks Photoshopped. You can see here. We're kind of
Yeah.
in that phase now with AI, but what happens when AI starts learning? Well, hey, this is how people identify this is AI, and it self corrects because it's not something
Ooh,
that we can really control. I mean, this is, it's like
I
some
know.
Terminator
Yeah.
type stuff.
It is, the first thing I look for is on the hands and the fingers and toes, because, AI has that problem right now
Right.
where it gives them 6 fingers or what. It's odd. It's
Yeah.
never the right amount. And I'm like, I would have never really looked at that first, initially for some of these photos, but you've had to learn, you've had to change, and they're getting better.
I know.
So
It's
I don't know.
enjoy the
It's going to be
times we're
interesting.
still in now, I guess, before it really gets out of hand.
Yeah, because it's I don't know. There's not much we can do about it. It's the advancement, and
Yep.
sometimes it's a great thing. Unfortunately, for what we're all here trying to do, discover Bigfoot,
Right.
it's not helpful, because now it's going to be even harder to believe anybody's photos or videos or anything that's coming out, and it's really going to push us even further towards having a type specimen that's going to be
Right.
the only way to have the answers.
I agree. I think it's just. I personally think that for a long time, video and photo has been useless. I mean, even the last couple decades with, like we talked about, Photoshop and some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't, I don't think it's going to be enough. Obviously, even something like the Patterson-Gimlin film, if it is real, which we don't know, that wasn't enough, right? In a time period where
Right.
you didn't have this kind of digital manipulation. So it's just gonna keep going on that point. I mean, and it has
Exactly. Yeah.
effects way beyond this topic. I mean, it's going to be
Yeah, we
every.
couldn't even agree 50 years ago.
Yeah.
How are we going to do it now? That is crazy.
Like,
I
are
never
you going to be able to
I
believe
thought about.
anything people send you? Are you going to have to meet face to face with somebody to have an interaction? Because of this has effects way beyond this topic. That's what I'm kind of getting at.
It
I mean, even
does.
YouTube now is starting to ask. I believe I read something about it recently where they will start asking if there's AI content in your video, you have to tick off a
Really?
box, because they're probably thinking this has effect on, imagine elections, other kind of things where
Wow.
it's insane. I've been going down some Twitter X threads lately,
Uh-huh.
talking about some of the AI programs, and it's genuinely scary. So that's why I kind of need a little bit of a break, I think, with the social media thing, because I'm like, we are barreling towards it. The brakes on the train have been broken, and there's no stopping it now. Really, I mean, it's crazy.
As Thomas Steen would say, sometimes, the um, inmates rule the
Oh yeah, very much
asylum.
so. If you look at the state of the world, I would agree right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's where we're kind of going with that. I mean, I want to stay positive, that
Sure.
things are going to get better. And because I love the subject so much, and I can have a lot of passion for this, because this is, I've said it before, this is my hobby. This is what I do for fun. And I spend a lot of time on it. So, I don't want to just trash it.
Right.
I want it to keep going. So it kind of goes towards that attitude, right? I want to have that attitude that I'm going to be positive that something will happen in the future. I mean, the drones are getting better and a little bit more quieter and a little
Right.
bit, more affordable. I still think they're loud,
Yeah, they're not
but
there yet. They're not at
they're
the
not
point.
there. Yeah.
No. I mean, even
But
look at just thermal imagers. A decade ago, I mean, when I was first kind of getting into like field research about 8 or 9 years ago, I didn't really know anyone who had a thermal imager that it wasn't one of those extremely expensive ones.
mm,
Really hard to meet anyone
right,
who had a thermal imager, because it was $10,000+ with
it's
FLIR. So you
huge.
had to have somebody that had some coin. But now almost everyone can get $400, $500 for a thermal imager. Are they the same quality?
Right.
No, but it just goes to showing that things like thermal drones are going to get more affordable and better inevitably over time. So it may be another tool that
Oh,
everyone gets to
looks
use.
like we've got somebody knocking on the door. Hello,
Hello
Jonathan.
there.
Welcome. How
How
are
you doing,
you?
everybody? What's going on, Nikki? How you doing, Alex?
Good, man. How you doing? You guys get a bunch of snow up there too?
Yeah, we did all right. I think I have more down south here at home than there was up north where my daughter lives. We got
Hmm.
probably about 8. maybe 8-9 inches here.
Oh, that's about what we got. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Kind of
Fun.
nice.
Thank you.
Northeast problems, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. I'm my problem is I use my air conditioner in the day and my heater at night. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, right on. Well, I mean, like my mom said, it's just the opposite down south. We turn the furnace on to heat the house up, and y'all turn the air conditioner on to cool the house off. So,
Yeah.
so
But
how you guys doing tonight?
it's good. It's good. We're talking about the drive to discover Bigfoot and what drives you, to keep looking and be motivated in light of extremely getting better AI stuff and
Okay.
all of the complications of evidence, right? It's getting harder to come up with evidence because of that. So we were just going through the ideas on there in front.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
What drives you? Is it the success part? Is it knowing that you have a lot of support behind you? For me, I know that I like to do this because um, I have that attitude that I'm positive. I think it's going to come to light at some point,
Right.
but we're in this circle that I think may go on for another 50 years. I don't know.
Very likely.
Even though, we were talking about drones are getting better,
Right.
but not yet. They're just not there yet, in my opinion. And I guess it depends on how you use them. You could use them just for scouting reasons, which are great, right? Because it'll cover a lot more ground than if you were walking. But I don't know. There's a lot of different things behind why you're looking for Bigfoot. Do you have something, Jonathan, that spurs you?
I mean, I think it'll just continue on after the discovery, more or less beyond the discovery. I have given thought to your topic, and I don't really think it's going to diminish my purpose out in the woods in this topic when perhaps a body is obtained and it's classified. It is a species. There's so much work still to be done.
Correct.
Nobody has spent time like Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey out in the woods studying the habits of this undiscovered primate. Even with the discovery, there is all the adaptations, the habits that they have, that what they eat, how they mate, when they mate. You can run the gamut. I mean, we'll still be at that area where it could be or it could not be. We can't prove it because we don't see the creature doing it. So I think there's a lot more to do beyond the discovery.
Absolutely, I agree. Danny Staten said, I saw one. Does that mean I discovered Bigfoot already?
No,
For you
personally, yeah.
That's your we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's your personal journey. You discovered it. But I think in light of what I'm discussing, I'm looking at the big picture, okay?
Right.
Because there's still a lot of people out there think we're nutty for going out in the woods and looking for a bipedal 700-pound creature out there, and they don't believe us. Maybe they don't pick on us as much. I think I've noticed that they're a little bit more accepting, or they are easier to go, oof, okay, whatever, type of deal.
I agree. I think the scales are tipping.
A little bit, yeah.
I
for
think
sure.
It's not quite as taboo. Even though I'm young into this subject, still only I think going on 4 years, just from the time I started till now, there's been a lot of change. And one of them would be, I think the subject is becoming more of a reality than it was just 4 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's definitely more of a, I don't want to say mainstreaming of it, but there's more of an interest.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about, Nikki, even just before Jonathan, you jumped on, we were talking about how if you compare 10, 15 years ago to now, the amount of podcasts and shows, I mean, it's endless. So that just shows you there's an interest. People have an interest. But
Right.
yeah, I think it's interesting just seeing the amount of people. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of people message me, and I talk to a lot of people, and I get a lot of emails from people. I've gotten emails from people that say, I've never had an interest in Bigfoot. I saw one of your videos. Now I'm kind of curious. I'm still a skeptic. I don't believe, but I think it's an interesting topic. So there's people that are just kind of stumbling across this stuff. And I know other people that have podcasts and shows like yourself, Nikki, also talk about, people that never maybe would have had an interest somehow coming
Right.
across it and then being curious.
Mm-hmm.
I've also talked to people that are have had very esteemed positions, so to speak, that have always had an interest in the topic and will say, well, I never was able to be public about it. And they're still not necessarily public about it, but they're a lot more comfortable knowing there's other people who are interested in it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you just wonder, and it's just to add on your point a little bit from a little bit ago, Jonathan, about the scientific discovery part. I always thought it was odd when people said, once this is discovered, all the so-called field researchers, investigators are just going to get pushed to the side, and the scientists are going to march in. I don't think that's the case. I think, as you
Yeah, I don't
mentioned, I
think
mean, how do you prove wood knocking, right? That's, for example, that's something that even if a Bigfoot body is found tomorrow, let's say it's found in the Cascade Mountains in Washington, I'm of the opinion that scientists or biologists would probably say, well, okay, that means that there are Sasquatch present in the Cascade Mountain Range and perhaps some of the Pacific Northwest. But they're not going to then say, well, they're also present in the Appalachians, I think, without that being proved. So it's not like the discovery would be over. I think there is an element of people being attached to the mystery part of it, and they don't want it to be solved. But I don't think if it's solved tomorrow, I don't think that's going to change at all. What a lot of people there's still a huge interest. It's not just going to be, okay, time to pack up our bags and let's go to Loch Ness. That's the next one. I don't think that's going to be the case personally, but for some people maybe, but
maybe more the
maybe.
people that are banking on the subject and involved in the huge amount of publicity and money making that's involved.
Oh, nice you said that. Let's move that one then.
Yeah, right on. I mean, you take away the mystery and
there are some people, I just wanted to say real quick, that like I have a friend who he says the moment if I ever see one, like that's it for me. I don't really need to investigate it more. That's just my conclusion, right? Some people have that attitude. Some people, that would probably, like a lot of people, would just egg them on even further. I mean, if I know if that happened to me, I would be, okay. Obviously, I'm not going to call it quits after that. But yeah, so it's interesting.
Another piece to the puzzle.
The different motivations,
Right, exactly. And so the money trail, this could be anything from commercializing expeditions, it could be TV shows, it could be merchandising, and I have absolutely no issue with people trying to make a little money off of it.
I don't think there's any problem with it.
I think it's like anything else you have out there, right? And but I do know that there are a lot of people who do find that like a bad mark. Oh, they're just trying to make money and that's their goal. So what?
I was going to say,
you can even pay for that little bit of your equipment alone or travel or whatever it is, you will never come out ahead as far as what I think. You spend way more, as a researcher, an individual, not really like case of, the big channels that are bringing in a stream of income. But for the individual researcher, investigator, we spend way more, than what we're ever going to get
hobby.
back.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that. And I know there has been people who get themselves in trouble because, they're spending their money on cameras and probably should have spent it on something else.
Right.
So,
but that's like with any other thing. People, spend their money where they shouldn't, pursuing something. And obviously, I mean, I've heard stories with this topic where people lose friendships, they lose family members because they're just, hey, that's like a bad addiction, bad gambling, right? But
Right.
yeah, I do think
Vegas.
there's this
No,
attitude
sorry.
about people, making money on the topic. If you can cover your expenses, I mean that's incredible. I mean, I'm in a
Yeah.
very lucky position now working with Small Town Monsters where I
Hmm.
have all my dream cases that I've always wanted to investigate. That I get to basically go and investigate those and travel to those
Right.
locations. Obviously, places like Alaska, British Columbia. A couple of my recent
Hmm.
videos where I was with Thomas Steenberg and Leon and a lot of other people
Right.
that if I was just doing it solo, I probably would have been doing what I was doing 5, 6 years ago, just in my local areas here on the East Coast.
Hmm.
The West Coast was pretty much unattainable. So it's
Right.
it's it's really cool personally to be able to do that. Now, is that always going to last forever? Obviously not. So I think there's this kind of misconception that people that are just out there to kind of explore and do this thing on their own or do it for kind of organization are maybe trying to just make money on the topic. And there are people that are
Hmm.
like that, though. There's
Yeah.
absolutely just
Yeah.
Right.
we talk about the money trail. But even in the
Hmm.
past, you had stuff like, speaking of money trail, like with the BFRO or even the early days of the Olympic Project, you had Wally Hersom, right? And he was
Hmm.
kind of a benefactor, bought a lot of thermal imagers. I remember even meeting people in the BFRO back 10 years ago, and a lot of the thermal imagers that were being passed around across the country were originally Wally Hersom purchases. And that then goes back to in the 50s, you had Tom Slick, really fascinating stuff. If you ever read the Lauren Coleman book about that and how, at that time they thought they were about to solve this and they were funding expeditions left and right with people like
Hmm.
Peter Byrne. So it's been going on as long as the topic has been around. So it's nothing really
Right.
new, I don't think. I think it's just changed in the way that uh, it's kind of done these days, perhaps. You don't have these, oil millionaires coming in and saying, here, go here. I mean,
Right.
that'd be kind of cool, right?
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard people
Here,
say,
spend my money.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
Well, I think with the subject growing like it is in bringing in more people, you're bringing in more of both kinds. Individuals like you, Alex. I mean, it's easy to see that you have integrity and you're honest and working hard for the discovery. And then it's not so hard to recognize individuals that come in that look at what's going on here, and the first thing that comes to mind is, I could make bank on this and I don't care what I do, just show me the money.
Right.
And we're drawing in the bad with the good. And you know
Yeah. Here you
They
go.
should try another
Yeah.
topic, realistically,
yeah.
We all want the money. Come on.
Right
You know,
on.
I mean, I even know people that have been involved in this topic for those reasons, unfortunately learning that the hard way, associating with someone and then realizing their primary interest is just to get on TV, right? And
Right.
now seeing those same people just kind of gravitating over towards more of like the ghost paranormal world
Mhm.
because that's a bigger market. There's way more people on the street. You talk to
Yes.
people, way more people into ghosts and haunted stuff. So they're like, oh, whatever, Bigfoot tried that, doesn't work. Not a lot of money in the topic, so go to something that has more.
Oh man, now you're
So
so
Oh,
right. You're so right.
unfortunately,
man. It,
Plus, it's a
well,
lot easier when you have mystical things that there's no explanation.
right.
I mean, you
right.
can't go wrong. Anything you say is right.
And you see
Yeah.
some of
Whatever
that in the
happened?
Bigfoot topic
We're gonna get
now.
to that
but-
one too, because
yeah.
that one's down the list there.
I'm on a
I have a
roll.
paranormal section
Right,
there.
right.
But I don't feel it's wrong to try to get one penny out of this subject if you can. I mean, even for podcasters, I mean, when we pay for StreamYard and I've got my voice
Yeah.
meter, my voice mod, my mics, my lights, it adds up.
Yeah.
It all adds up. And my husband's like, well, you got an expensive little hobby there. I go, and I don't even have all the equipment to go out. I'm just barely starting that part of my journey.
Oh, it's
So,
just begun then.
yeah, it's like, it's going to be a lot. And it's funny because he has to ask me like 2 months earlier for like my birthdays or my, any of the holidays. That way he can a lot what he's gonna get for me because they're more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Well, especially if you're a gear fan like I am. I love gear, right?
Yeah.
I've got my filmmaking stuff behind me here on the shelf.
Uh-huh.
So getting into this topic and you're a gear person, you're pretty much doomed. Go do something else. It doesn't matter what you get into, but it's like, oh, that thermal, interesting. What about this drone? What about that? So you kind of get caught up in that. But
Yeah.
I think it's. I mean, if you're having fun with it at the end of the day, I think that's a great part of it too. And that's
Oh,
I
I
guess
think
that goes
it's
back
a
to
good
motivation.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
trade our
definitely a
time
good
for
thing.
money our whole lives.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's
mean,
exactly right. How much
you're
time do
gonna
you
s-
spend doing something you really don't like?
There
I mean,
you go.
I think
There
of
you
all
go.
the jobs I worked that I absolutely
Mhm.
hated and
Right on.
waste of time, and
Are
a
you
lot of people
doing
are
this
stuck in
full
that.
time now, Alex? Is
Yeah,
this
now I
all
am.
you're doing?
Yes. Yep.
God
So
bless you.
You're
and
living the
That's
dream. You are
awesome.
living
like
the
I
dream
said,
for
I mean,
sure.
I'm extremely blessed to be in that position, and it took a long time to get there. A lot
Yeah.
of real, I was working a job and doing some of these expeditions and films on the side, and it was absolutely grueling. I mean,
Yeah.
this was a few years ago now, when I was
Mhm.
really in that mindset of, if I keep doing this, I was working an office job, I did multiple of those, and it was just,
Mhm.
I was commuting upwards of an hour and a half a day. I mean, just back and forth to Boston, near where I lived at the time, and it was just grueling. I said, I don't think I can do this much longer.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to pick one or the other. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the trade-off. So I've been extremely fortunate, and since then, it's just been absolutely amazing. And like I said, I know it might not last forever, so just kind of enjoying riding the wave as I can.
Mhm.
So
You're doing a great job, Alex.
You are. You are.
Tip my hat to you.
Everybody enjoys all of the stuff you put out there,
thank
Yeah,
you.
and we
where would we
appreciate it.
be
We
without
do.
small town monsters and Aleks Petakov, man? I mean,
Uh-huh.
Bigfoot, it just wouldn't be the same.
No, I'm just a guy out there pursuing a passion. There's no special formula. It's just, I think it's a lot of luck and a lot of just having fun along the way. And if it gets to the point where it's not fun, I think that's when you have to kind of sit back and reevaluate things. Like I'm in the stage
Right.
now where I'm a little burned out with the Bigfoot topic. I think it's
Uh-huh.
just in terms of creativity, because my first passion was filmmaking. I mean, I've always been interested in Bigfoot and that sort of stuff, but I've always been
Yeah.
a filmmaker, and I've done films on other topics even before Bigfoot. I did
Right.
lake monsters, mystery big cats. That's another big one I'm into.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping going forward now to kind of have the Bigfoot stuff and then also expand into some other stuff that I'm just curious about, kind of giving my take on some of that stuff. So that's
Right.
kind of the
Yeah,
way
it comes
I'm looking at it
natural.
now.
I mean, Bigfoot, it's not all about Bigfoot. I mean, when you have that demeanor in you to investigate, explore, and want to know all the little bits and pieces and figure it out, there's a lot of topics out there. So it's quite
Yeah, for
natural
sure.
There
not
are,
to just
yeah.
stay stuck in Bigfoot.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a stuck thing. It's just, again, it's a little bit, because a lot of times in some of my films, I touch on a lot of other topics. I like doing
Mhm.
the history part of things, especially if you go
Mhm.
to a region. There's other weird stuff, maybe not even necessarily paranormal, but other interesting things you come across. Just stories
Mhm.
that, as a natural storyteller, that's something I kind of gravitate towards. But
Mhm.
Awesome.
Bigfoot is just something I've been interested in my whole life in terms of that curiosity factor. And I think that ties pretty well into this next slide you have up here, Nikki.
Yeah, and that next one is the scientific pursuit. What are your goals to bring it to science, right? And do you have somebody to send hair samples and whatever kind of samples you happen to find? Because that's one of my pet peeves kind of, is that people are collecting poop and putting it in their freezer, and then they have no intention of sending it to anybody. They're
Mhm.
just holding this,
Yeah.
for however long, but not realizing how it degrades, not knowing the whole science behind saving materials like this. You have to collect it a certain way
Mhm.
and properly, and preserve it in the right stuff and get it out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But people want to hold on to that stuff and keep it forever. Oh, I got
Mhm.
some Bigfoot hair I collected in 1952. What?
Yeah.
It that just bothers me. And if you want to collect it and say it's Bigfoot hair, I guess that's your choice.
Mhm.
But for say you, Jonathan,
Hmm.
do you keep it? Do you have a place that you have set up to receive any kind of hair? Or is that just something, well, I can't afford to send DNA, to get that result. So that's something I just don't, you're not going to be focused on,
Uh, so for me, I'm in the beginning stages of really trying to sharpen my skills and per se perfect the collection process, and that's learning by listening, reading, watching, and making sure that you have the right equipment and product that you need to have with you when you make a discovery, and then be able to go through the steps, put your mask on, get your gloves on, don't contaminate the site, take
right.
a knee, think, get your proper containers, make sure it's labeled properly, collect it, make sure that it's, brought back to your home and not contaminated and labeled properly, ready to go. For
Mhm.
me, I am still working on the outlets as to who can I give this to. I have at first I went to Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they helped me with some balsam fir branches and some rhizophyra needle cast detection. And I wanted them to take a look at some scat, and they just said they didn't have anybody that was available to do that. Um, Obviously,
Mhm.
Darby Orcutt, and that
Right.
had put it out there that they would take legitimate samples. Um, uh, so since then, I've only found the one scat that I thought would be somewhat legitimate, and I did email Darby. I didn't get an answer back, but I know they're really busy and probably overwhelmed, I would imagine. So if I got lost in the mix, it's not the end of the world.
Mhm.
But I've heard Alex. I was actually was watching you on a podcast, and you had mentioned some individuals that you send hairs out to, and this one gal was actually known to be very good, but she didn't go to college for it. She was self-taught, and I wrote her name down. And that's where I'm getting my information. I'm writing these names down and the numbers and the information down so that when I do obtain something that I think should be, looked at, that I perhaps can contact them. I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
you also need a little bit of a reputation. I mean, I can't imagine if I got a hold of, you know, somebody at a college and said, "Hi, I'm John Rafferty. I found a scat up in the woods, and I was wondering if you could check it out and help me, discover what it is." They
Right.
they don't know me from Adam.
Right.
And if they try to look in to see who I am, oh, this guy, and I don't really have time for this.
Yeah.
So I still need to. That's a weak spot in my research. I need more connections, and to be able to at least send a photograph and a quick 5-minute clip and say, "Listen, this is what I found. This is what I did. I collected it. What do you think?"
Right. Yeah, they
Yeah.
really want that chain of evidence to not be broken
Yeah,
and, so
I've
that
been
it's
working really
legit.
hard on doing that properly,
Hmm.
Oh, my
and
screen is
Yeah.
flashing.
you know,
Sorry, I thought my screen. It's like doing this weird flashing thing. Um, I think the person you're mentioning was Cindy Dosen. That's
yes,
because I
Yes.
remember it was when Darby did a show on Culs's show,
hmm
and
Yeah.
I had asked because he was talking about hair stuff, and I asked, what do you think about Cindy Dosen or something to that effect, and he
hmm
said, Cindy is actually one of the best self-taught hair people in that he's aware of, and she is, I
hmm
believe she's a veterinarian in her background. So she works with
Okay.
animals. She does have some
Yeah.
sort of
that
scientific training.
helps. Yeah,
Yeah, but I've worked with her a few times, and I've been lucky enough to get her contact through other people in the topic, and that's been something really great for me. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be. I went to school for communications, so video, all the kind of stuff, political science and history. Those are not exactly field biology stuff, but I did do some naturalism training back in the day, and that kind of really got me interested in the natural world. But I always try to reach out to people personally. I think even just asking random people, professors, hey, it's worth sending an email. I'll give you guys a couple stories I have. One of them's rather funny about getting back to people about this stuff. But Cindy Dosen is a great person that multiple times I've sent hair samples to, and both times they've come back as a known animal. But in my Dark Coast series I did for so-called Area A in Alaska, we sent in a sample that we found that we thought for sure was brown bear. We thought, oh my God, this is death. The height, it came back as lynx. That's something that we don't.
That was on the building, right?
That was on the cabin with all the scratch marks.
Yeah.
We're thinking, oh my God, it was definitely a bear, and it comes back a lynx. I wouldn't have known that. So Cindy is trained because she knows how to look at the microscope, and she'll send you a full PDF with information and comparisons to other samples she has on file, or through some kind of like I don't know about GenBank, but some kind of a microscopic database, because they look at the medulla. They look at, does it have guard hairs? Is it fur versus hair? So that stuff's really, really interesting. But so I've contacted quite a few professors over the years, just inquiring. I actually had a friend of mine connected me to a former professor of his who did primate dermatoglyphics, so the lines in your hands. So we found that weird handprint in Alaska on the side of the metal side of the cabin. We'd collected the sample and sent Larry Beans Baxter, who, and this is part of too, is working with people who have some sort of training. So Larry Beans Baxter, he's retired law enforcement, so he knows how to collect evidence. So we found that thing. I'm not going to touch it. I don't want to ruin this. Let's talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. And then you have that person collect it. He at the time had sent all the samples to Doug Hychek, and it's part of the Legend Meets Science thing. So I don't know the update on that. But I had reached out to two professors of dermatoglyphics. This was last fall, 2022. And I reached out and I sent the handprints, and one of them thought it was a bear. And then he's like, well, actually, it definitely looks primate. And the other one thought it was human. And he said, well, it looks like, when you're at a cabin, what are you usually doing? Hard labor. And what that does is I guess that kind of opens up the pores, and the lines are more pronounced when you're doing manual labor. So he thought it was just a human print. I had also emailed Jeff Meldrum about it. He kind of had the same sort of opinion about the handprint, but just being able to reach out to people like that is really cool. And then this is the funny one. The only really negative experience I had was I was doing a video on alleged Sasquatch audio, and I was doing this, like, I don't want to call it a study because it wasn't that, but I was doing this deep dive on wood knocks. And I talked to Scott at the Bigfoot Mapping Project, and I said, hey, can you give me, he's got this aggregation of reports from the BFRO, all these other sites, can you give me,
he's done such a great job.
He's got a lot of stuff, and he's a good buddy of mine. So I said, hey, can you send me a document with all the data where there's a Class A sighting and a wood knock that's either heard before or after the sighting or during the sighting? And I think it was like 20-something sightings across North America. And there was only one that I was aware of where there was some guy, I think it was in Florida, had seen what he thought was a guy in a ghillie suit smacking a stick on a tree. He walked up to it and it looked like a hairy ape man and walked away. The other ones where somebody heard wood knocks, they saw a Sasquatch, and then they heard the wood knocks either before or after. So I was doing this I was trying to compile it all, and I was looking at chimps, and there was this foundation out of Europe that does this trail camera study in Africa with chimps, and they've put trail cameras out there, and once the chimps get accustomed to it, they filmed chimps throwing rocks at trees. I was kind of using that to say, well, these are known ape behaviors using not really wood knocking, but something like that. And I'd emailed one of the people who was in charge of this foundation asking some questions, and hoping to kind of like use one of the videos as kind of an example of this. And I got a very bad response back saying, oh, this is ridiculous. Bigfoot it's crazy to even think of Bigfoot. And they just kind of went on. And I was like, wow, that was really mean. I remember sending it to some people. I sent it to Scott and a couple other people, and they were like, yeah, that was a simple, no, we don't believe in this would have been nice. And then I looked her up, and she's some politician in the European Union. So I'm like, maybe that explains it. So she wasn't like a scientist, but she was in charge of this foundation. But, I think it's all about just contacting people. I'm trying to still talk to these folks that there's these two, I believe they're husband and wife out of Arizona. They have a German name, but they wrote this article a few months ago that casually mentioned that they believe that gorillas produce infrasonic vocalizations that have an effect on female gorillas, and they call it the Barry White effect. Very interesting. So,
Wow.
because you hear, I mean, even you know, Brian and Chewy in the chat, a good buddy of mine, Brian, he's had some kind of an encounter and he heard a vocalization, felt it in his chest. I mean, how many times do you hear that with Bigfoot reports where people? I mean, I know somebody who was a state park ranger who saw two creatures and one of them roared at him and he felt it. So you have these stories, and you know,
Wow.
if it's interesting. So the fact that gorillas, and there's no other primates known to use infrasonic vocalization. So I'm like, whoa, stop. We need to know more about this. You know, give me some info. So sometimes it doesn't hurt to just say, hey, you know,
Yeah.
I'm really curious about what you said, even if there's not a Bigfoot angle to it. It can, I guess, it can be kind of tricky to try to sneak that in without being too crazy. Like, hey, I'm Bigfoot. You know, tell me about this, because I think you got to ease into it a lot of times. So
Sure.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with a lot of different types of personalities, and you take one certain individual that you've never talked to before and you call him one particular time, him or her, and you may get a real bad response or having a bad
Right.
day, and then maybe you don't ever try to contact that person again, where at maybe 2 weeks prior they might have been having a great day and they might
Right.
have got into a big conversation with you and said, why don't you come on over, let's talk about it. So
I guess that's the luck
Right.
part of it. Yeah.
crapshoot, you know.
But I think I will just conclude by saying this. I think as citizen scientists, those of us that try to be as scientific as possible without being actually scientists, I think it's really good to have people, I don't want to say in your back pocket, but people you can refer to. Obviously now
Right.
with the Darby Orcutt thing, and I've talked to Darby, he's a fantastic guy. Really, really, you know, amazing what he's doing. The fact that that is something that people can do now is not always been the case. I mean, you've had stuff in the past. You had the Brian Sykes study, although I know there's a lot of controversy around that with the, I guess it was with
Yep.
the TV show at the time, but that was a study. There's been a couple other done. Obviously, there's the Ketchum one, but I don't even refer to that in a serious tone, especially once you read the Haskell Hart refutation of that. And Haskell
Right.
Hart, from what I understand, he's a Bigfoot witness. He's not even like a skeptic, so that's what's I don't know.
Right.
But so there have been some stuff, but nothing really, I think, to the extent of this Darby, the Darby Orcutt, North Carolina thing.
That's
So
coming.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I have up right now is Desert Rat Gardner is hopefully my new partner for the summer, EC out of New Mexico, and she says that you should definitely try to contact a Dr. Christopher Dyer out of the University of New Mexico, Gallup, with evidence, because he has been
That's
collecting
cool.
stuff there.
I
Now,
took a snapshot of that.
Yeah, there may be scientists here and there that are into this stuff that have been
Good.
doing it for years. You know how many Grover Krantzes there are that are maybe hiding, that are kind of, I know just, I've talked to people behind the scenes, stuff like Project Zoo Book. I've had the chance to interact with some academic individuals. There's even one I was trying to do some eDNA stuff with water a few years ago, and I kind of gave up because it seemed like it was too complicated with the eDNA stuff. But I think as that technology gets better, that'll be something that ordinary people can buy, like an eDNA kit, and be able to collect that and then send that to the proper
Send it.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not that way. You're not saying, "Hey, this is or is what," you know, making a claim about it. Let them figure out what it is, and if it is what it is, hey, cool, good for you. You found it. If not, you know, at least you did it the right way, and you didn't just sit on it. You didn't put poop in your freezer and left it there for 10 years.
And the whole thing is that when you have the scientists receive this stuff, they don't know how you collected it. They don't
Right.
know your procedures.
Yeah, you got to
They're-
film it.
If they find that
Exactly.
there was some kind of primate in that, they're immediately going to think you contaminated
Right.
your specimen.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so we're always going to have that. There's always going to be that.
I think that's where your reputation, you know, your portfolio in this subject really starts to come to light and be important, because if they do get presented something that, you know, looks like it, you know, could be the real deal, they really need to make a decision of whether it's worth their time to get involved with that. And the first thing they're going to do is look you up and
Yeah.
try to get some backstory to your character. Who are you? Are you just a jokester?
Mhm.
Are you
Time
in
is money. Time is money,
Yep.
you know.
time is money?
So they're going to
Yeah.
take those big wigs that, you know, from doctors' offices that are collecting specimens to
Mhm.
have, you know, because we're going to be put at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
You just know that I know a lot of people don't even say any of that. They'll turn in their samples and just say, "What is this?" You know, they're
Right.
not saying, "I'm looking to see if it's a Bigfoot hair."
Just
Or
even leave that out. I mean,
yeah.
I've even had a case outside of the Bigfoot topic with mountain lion. I did a documentary called Lions of the East a few years ago, which is about out of place mountain lion sightings here in New England. And there's this lady who had her horse attacked by something in Massachusetts, and the state tried to blame her and said it's owner negligence. But I mean, and so she was infuriated, and she found multiple hair samples embedded on this fence post in blood. And she was able to send that to the University of Florida, came back as male mountain lion in the sample. And then
Mhm.
the state said, well, you know, actually, I don't know if we agree with this. You know, let's get another person to test it. So they find the University of Arizona, a very respected lab, and they got it
Mhm.
tested. It came back again, male mountain lion. But I think it's just, and she originally sent it in just saying, hey, what is this? You know,
Yeah.
she was in a fortunate enough position to pay for it herself,
Yeah.
and she didn't know what it was actually. They thought it was a bear. They were just trying to say, I
What?
want to prove the state wrong because it's not our fault our horses got injured. It was clearly an attack of some kind.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have a mountain lion. So that's just like with the DNA stuff. But yeah, I think I think a lot of people get intimidated by that sort of thing. But you can swab your cheek and set it into these, you know, ancestry things. Not that I would necessarily do that, but because I've heard some sketchy stuff about those things too. Somebody
Right.
was saying they like sent a gecko sample in. It came back as some kind of, you know, I don't know. I don't know. This is just made hearsay, but
Yeah. You
but
never know.
DNA, it's just
Yeah.
it's complicated. A lot of people don't. You really don't understand it. I don't understand. I'm not going to pretend to.
Right.
Right. Well, if there was money in it for the scientists, okay, or meaning that we could really use one scientist, a DNA place to take all our samples and believe us and really do the work, but they need to be paid to do that. So who's going to
Right.
pay them? And that's why
Mhm.
usually, you know, you're having to find places that do other work to submit your samples. They're not a dedicated, you know, cryptid place because
Sure.
they'll
Yeah,
never
unless
make
they
any
get a
money off that.
grant, you know, if they have a
Right.
Yeah,
grant and they're funded to do that project, then there's,
right.
you know, there's money there.
Or if you have like I know Doug Hijack and when they were filming Monster Quest back in the day, that was part of their show budget is they would send stuff to get tested in. And he knew a bunch of people. Like there was the guy who made the pheromone chip. Oh gosh,
Yeah, Doug's really connected.
Greg Bambanek, who he goes by Dr. Juice. He makes hunting and fishing lures actually as like a side gig. You used to be able to buy the Sasquatch pheromones from the website, and those are the ones that Doug had him develop. But that's a person that, you know, again, if you have that connection, it's great. So networking is, I think, a part of it. Just get people to,
Right.
you know, that again, not in your back pocket, but people you can say, hey, do you know somebody that I might be able to send this to? And that's how I came across Cindy Dosen, for example. And if anyone has stuff like that, I'd be happy to help, you know, with some of my connections. If anything, just send some of that stuff around. If you
Yeah,
find
if you
something
don't mind,
interesting.
I would definitely contact you, Alex, if I had something that I thought needed just a quick look at and a second opinion before I tried to press to get it off. Or
yeah, because I mean, it's best again. It's best to send it off to somebody who has some kind of training and can actually maybe tell
Yeah.
you what's going on.
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I won't chew up a bunch of your time here, but last night I was up and doing some things up in the woods and casting some little prints. Well, I had to mix up the plaster, so I didn't have a stick. I went over to this white pine tree, snapped a branch off. I'm over there in the bucket and I'm stirring. I look at the stick and I'm like, where the hell? And I pulled this black hair off of the stick, about 8-10 inches long, and I've got it in my finger before it even registered in my head. Shit, I just touched this thing, and I'm like, get my mouth away from it. And I had to do the whole process and everything. I think that was just so bizarre, and I've been thinking about it. I did collect it, but I think it's got to be a woman's hair or something. But it happens. You just don't expect it to happen. And that's why you need to make
Right.
sure you have the right collection stuff with you and collect it properly before
Mhm.
any professor is going to
Yeah.
spend 2 seconds looking at
Or
it.
even just ask them how to do it. I mean, I'll talk to people that know what they're doing. I mean, I've even had people message me or send me emails that are from scientific backgrounds saying, "Hey, I noticed in your video you touched your mask with your gloves on as you were adjusting it because I have a beard. It's hard to get the mask on." And they're like, that can possibly contaminate the gloves if you're touching a sample. I'm like, that's not something I'm trained to know. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad when somebody can say something like that, and it helps me obviously. And then if I can get the proper collecting and send that off and find out more, again, like with that Alaska example, turned out to be lynx. I mean, that's pretty cool to me. I find
That is wicked.
really
cool.
fascinating.
I
So
wouldn't have thought that with the hair being up as high as it was. It must have been leaping after something.
You see your cats at home and it's like they're all the same apparently. Even the wild ones are still climbing up the sides of buildings.
Right.
I'm like, okay,
well, a lot of people have found long hairs like that, and they come back human, because I know my mom, when she would brush my hair, or my sisters, she would get that hair and she would throw it outside, because she says the birds like it. The birds like it. Just throw it out there because they use it for their nest.
Yeah, for the nest.
And I don't know how many people, do that anymore, but, I can remember that my mom always did that.
I've got like 2-3 birds' nests that have been sealed up in these bags that I collected with gloves and the whole nine. I've had them now for a year because on the inside of the nest, it's, there's hairs inside of the 2 of them. But I haven't wanted to take them out and do anything with it because I want somebody to properly do that. I mean, I don't have the microscope and all. I don't even know what to do with them. But the idea was, one fall, I ended up climbing up a bunch of trees and grabbing birds' nests because I'm like, well, these birds are picking up all the hairs to build the nest. They're doing the job for me.
Curious Cryptid Steve says, John, don't worry much about having touched it. The tech has moved way past where it was when Ketchum made her mess.
Wow. That hair had, the short time I was looking at it, it looked very black, but unless it was just the light, there was one little portion of it that looked very white. It was almost like it went black to white, like maybe a gray hair of a lady or something.
Wow.
Well, with those, if you do touch the hair, you can still do the microscopic analysis. Because like what Cindy does, they're not looking for the DNA aspect. Right. They're just, so you could touch it all you want. They're just looking for what the medulla and the follicle. Yeah. So because they're looking at it at a point. So that's actually cool. So like when we collected that Alaska sample, we put a segment aside that we tried to collect as properly as we could. I said, all right, that'll be the Darby pile, and then I'll grab something else just for the analysis where I can hold it up and look at it and not worry as much. So that's the good thing, I guess, with Mike, if you're just trying to find out what animal it might belong to.
Seems like a 2-man operation, that DNA collection, like a doctor having a nurse, hand me this couple, hand me this, because you're right. I mean, it's like this spring when I found that slobber on the ground, I thought I was doing everything right. And I'm watching the video afterwards. I'm like, you idiot. I'm like you're rubbing your nose. And I was like, oh, you shot that. But I think that was just slime.
It's going to be hard no matter what, it's going to be hard.
I mean, you're not hurting anybody out there trying to do it right.
Right.
Yeah.
If you learn something, that's good. Yeah. If you learn how to do it properly, I think that's awesome.
And if you have the drive to learn and the drive to do it right, I think that would be attractive to the professors and the people that can really do the analysis on your samples after they're watching you for a couple years and say, you know what, he's trying like hell. He's incorporating the proper techniques. Right. Maybe when that really becomes important and you find something that really counts, they might, go ahead and give you a little bit of their time.
Right.
That's what I'm hoping. So just keep up the good fight.
Yeah. And if you have too much pride to admit you can't work with other people, forget it. Like if you're not going to get anywhere if you think you can do it all alone, at least with something like this, and you know, if you don't have that training, I think people should not be afraid to just reach out to other people and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Or can you help me get in touch with this person? Or hey, would you mind looking at this sample for me? The worst you can have happen is they'll tell you no, or they'll call you crazy or something, and then you move on from there. It is what it is, right?
Right. For sure. Well, let's move on to the next topic, which is paranormal perspectives. You know, when you're in the field, and I have to say, I've had paranormal experience. So I know there's some crazy shit that goes on out there.
Right.
Okay. Because I've seen that with my own eyes. I've experienced that. I'm not prepared to attach that to Bigfoot at this point. And I know some do and have, and that's fine. That's the way they're going. But for me, you know, I'm still on the road to flesh and blood, that we're gonna find this elusive creature, and it's gonna be, you know, just something that doesn't have a huge population. I don't believe there's a huge population like a lot say. I think there's enough for them to carry on. You know, there's just enough. I feel like they're teetering on that edge of being less and less. But
it would seem so.
But you know, some people believe there's like 15 or whatever in 10 miles, or there's this, or because they see them every day. And they're visiting their home, and they're feeding them.
I've heard those stories.
Teleporting into their bedroom, I've heard that before.
Standing right over them, over the head of their bed. I try to wrap my head around all that. I know.
I mean, that's like stories of like the Mothman and other weirder things. It's the same kind of thing. It's like, well, this thing was standing over me. So at that point, I'm kind of with you, Nikki. I've had stuff happen that's weird that I can't explain. I saw what I could only define as a UFO by definition of the word, unidentified flying object, in Pennsylvania, and we got it on film, and it was a very weird occurrence. I genuinely have no idea what that was. But do I think that was associated with Sasquatch? I always say, if you see an orb fly through the woods and you see a deer run after it, or you see a deer come out of the woods right after the orb, are you going to assume that that deer is paranormal because you saw an orb? So but people are making that assumption with Sasquatch. Maybe it's because something like Sasquatch is weird in itself. It's not supposed to exist. It's not supposed to be normal, right? So maybe that's where that leap is. But I still leave some room, and I say I don't know what's going on. I mean, we could all be wrong. I think that's probably less likely that there is some sort of paranormal aspect, but the world is definitely a weird place. There's a lot of weird stuff, but I can't say one way or the other. But if you look at just kind of the data, so to speak, the eyewitness sightings, the people, I've personally talked to a lot of people, a very small minority of them have anything really weird associated with like a Bigfoot sighting. Most of them are it was crossing the road, or it ran up the hill, like very mundane sort of stuff that if you saw a deer cross the road, you saw a deer cross the road. There isn't disappearing into a ball of light. That's a very, very minor kind of part of it.
Well, if you took Sasquatch completely out of the equation, perhaps say there was no Sasquatch. It was never seen once. It's the name Bigfoot doesn't exist. It's not in our culture. It's not there. You still have paranormal happening. And so, human nature is going to try to attach that paranormal to something. So whatever the next batter, it's paranormal. You're on deck. You must be the culprit. So,
and I'm not privy to, mind speak or things talking to me, and maybe there are people out there who do hear things and experience other things that I don't, but I guess it would have to happen in front of me for me to get on board with all that. And because there's no way any evidence of that's going to come forward. I guarantee you right now, none of that. People say, "Oh, I've caught a picture of a portal opening up," and man, it's going to be really hard to pull that one off or get anybody to believe you have a picture of a portal, because it's all subjective. It's all, what you think you're seeing.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing with pareidolia.
Mm.
People see things
Yep.
and they think it's real because that's the way
Mhm.
their mind is telling them to interpret that.
Well, the way
Some
science
people
is
don't.
advancing, I don't think that
Yeah.
it would be out of the realm to have answers on a lot of what seems so supernatural in 50 years from now. It's maybe there'll be a logical explanation for what we perceive to be a portal.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not really the portal that we're all thinking of, the mechanic
Mhm.
opening and
Right.
closing of something. Maybe it is
Right.
Maybe it's a
something else.
frequency. I
I
mean,
mean, exactly. I mean,
it's
you
like
Yeah.
look at what
I
we've
was
And
learned
that's
over the last
science.
50
That is
years.
right.
science.
Yes.
Frequency is part of science, and that
Yeah.
has been proven that frequencies can
Who'd have ever
control
thought
different
that,
things.
the different types of visions? Yeah. I mean, to be, as I was growing up as a kid, oh, you're colorblind? Oh, what's that? And now we know that certain bugs and animals see in the ultraviolet
Mm.
spectrum. And when you look at that and think to yourself, that's what that animal sees. If you tried to tell somebody that 50, 60 years ago, or maybe
Yeah.
they would have said, you're off your rocker.
That's
So
yeah, that's like trying to
years
explain
from now,
Wi-Fi signal to somebody.
yeah,
Imagine trying to
exactly.
explain that in the 1500s. You go and say,
Right.
"Hey, I'm about to take my phone and message somebody in Germany." They're probably going to be like, "We're going to burn you as a witch
They'd
or a
run you
wizard or
out.
something."
You're a witch.
Paranormal, does that just mean we don't understand it? I mean, how would you
Right.
even measure something? Like, do we have the
I don't
technology to
know.
measure something like telekinesis?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I know it's theorized, and infrasound is one of those things that you can supposedly measure it, but it has a huge range of wildlife and things that produce infrasound, right? They can create feelings of depression or kind of
Hmm.
anxiety, all
Hmm.
sorts of stuff. Different animals use it. Apparently, if what I was talking about earlier with the gorillas being able to use it and it has an effect on the females, I mean that's extremely fascinating. And
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it's relevant to Bigfoot research, but you see these kind of parallels with some of the ape behavior and some of the stuff that's reported about Bigfoot. That's fascinating. If anything, to just draw a parallel and say, hey, let's look at this and
Yeah.
maybe there's something we can learn. If not, hey, at least we learned something about the near human primates that are out there.
Right.
I thought about that one day. The fact that Bigfoot um, remains so quiet, I would think, I mean, in our perception of is that it remains quiet in the woods, spends hours upon hours in just complete silence. Whether or not when they're together they have an active vocabulary and communication is yet to be seen. But when you spend your whole entire life in silence and solitude, it would make sense to me that your sensory perceptions would be heightened when it come to heavy thinking and meditation and just naturally, who knows? I mean, maybe there is some telepathic means to their communication. I don't know. But I mean, there's a possibility that they're that they would have abilities, you know, far beyond anything that we could comprehend just due to the fact of how years have gone by that they've spent in solitude. I'm having a hard time trying to explain what
I
it is
kind of
that I
get what
want
you're.
to
I
say,
think I
but
understand what you're saying. I mean, if like you, Jonathan, let's say, you took two people and one lived in New York City their entire life, and the other person
mhm,
lived in the woods, had no technology ever, never was able to use technology.
mhm.
Obviously, that person who lived in the woods is going to have a much more sensory aware existence. They're going
Yes.
to be able
Mhm.
to hear the animals and know these things that a person who has been cut off from nature, like a lot of people are nowadays, would have that kind of feeling. But I don't know. I mean, this conversation reminded me of a story I was told by this biologist. It was when I was doing this mountain lion documentary. This was like right before COVID started. He was a wildlife biologist I talked to up here in New Hampshire, and he had found evidence of scat that he believed was from a mountain lion in New Hampshire. And long story short, we were just talking about stuff, and I brought up Bigfoot eventually, and he was like, yeah, I think that's pretty silly. But he said the weirdest thing I've ever had happen to me was I was working out west at some animal rehab center, and there was like a forest fire. I don't remember where it was, either the Pacific Northwest or somewhere the Intermountain West. And he had worked with mountain lions. I mean, that was like something he had done for quite a while. And there was this female mountain lion that was apparently rescued from this area that was burned down, and she was in this rehab facility. And he says he was kind of going up to her enclosure, and there was a cage, and he started looking at her, and he said, all of a sudden, it's like I got this message from her. Hey, I was from this area, and it burned in the fire. And there's like, he's like, if this is real, come up to the side of the cage and let me pet you. And apparently then the mountain lion comes up and puts its back up against the side of the cage, and he touched her back. And this guy is like, I could give you this guy's name. I mean, you can look him up. He does wildlife conservation surveys, a very well-respected person. I was like, oh my God, this is the craziest story I've heard. With like, is this like Dr. Dolittle type stuff, right? I couldn't believe it, but maybe some people are just more in tune, or maybe there's, I don't know if it's necessarily like a communication. I'm not trying to say I think Bigfoot has telepathic communication, but maybe there are some people that just, they're able to understand animals more. I think nonverbal communication is something that we know so little about. I mean, you see a dog can see right through you and say, hey, I don't like this person, start growling at them. Maybe they just sense something because they're they can't communicate the way that we do. I don't know.
Yeah, and animal intuition.
From a baby,
they hear infrasound.
Yeah,
from a baby all the way up. I mean, we start eating all this nasty food and processed food. And what is that? The pituitary? Is it
the pineal gland, I think?
Pineal gland?
Yep.
Isn't that supposed to be like right here in the center of...
it's like the Egyptians had the Egyptians had that eye, the eye of Horus, I think it was. That's kind of looks like that. Yeah.
Don't they say that ours is like sealed up just because of the way that we live? You know, like if we were living out in the wild and
closed, but there's a lot of people who say you can open that when you're more spiritual and you live a certain way, you know, that you can be in touch with yourself and
what is the function of that gland? Is it all?
I'm not sure. I know ancient cultures, like my dad was really into ancient Egypt when I was a kid, so I read a lot about like Egypt, and the Egyptians felt that it was the third eye. That's what they felt. So it gave you, to them, it was, in their interpretation, was it gave them a connection to, I guess, the underworld, or to a different world, like not a different dimension, but a different plane of existence, kind of like how they had different realities. So that's obviously just a cultural interpretation, but I don't know in reality what it does, but I think it gets a little more, it's like the new agey kind of stuff once you're down that path. But I mean, we're unfortunately inundated with all kinds of toxins in general. Whether or not they have effects on that kind of stuff, they obviously affect our health in other ways, as we see.
Exactly. And that takes us down your own personal journey with all this, right? You have your own ability to choose what you want to believe in the subject, you know, and nobody's right or wrong. You have your way, you know, what you're going to believe. So some people will take that other path because maybe they think they understand it more, and some will my dog's barking. A dog's a dog. I can't help it.
That's all right.
So she's letting me know somebody's in the front, so that's a good thing.
Doing her job.
Yeah, she's doing her job. I can't.
Much more useful than my cats, I'd say. But, they'll just run and hide.
My cat hasn't jumped in the back. Usually he comes and squats on the back here. So, yeah, you know, everybody's going to have their own personal journey involved in all this, and that's okay. I have to say, though, is that those journeys can sometimes get skewed by the want to create things that happen. Okay. And where I take my whole stance, because people want to create things that aren't there, and that becomes a hoodwink. That becomes untruthful. It's deceitful. It's brings the whole subject down.
Yeah.
Okay, that's different. That's not part of your personal journey, your direction. That is being deceitful because you want to do things to change the minds of others by faking something,
Right.
by creating something that's not there, or that type of thing.
Yeah, and there's multiple tiers. I mean, there's obviously like there's the deceitful, purposeful hoaxing, whether that's to gain more attention. In the past, before the internet, you think of a lot of these hoaxers. Maybe there was more of a monetary, or they wanted to end up in a magazine, whatever the case may be. But then there's, I think in terms of like Bigfoot on the brain type stuff, right? You're deceiving yourself, whether or not you're doing that intentionally. That's kind of part of the contention, because I'm sure. It's happened to me for sure. And we mentioned pareidolia earlier. That's a good example. But there's also, I don't know if this is the right term, but audio pareidolia. I just kind of call it that because it's sort of like when I've been sitting there listening to audio that I've recorded, you're sitting there for hours. You want something to happen, and you're like, you hear any snap is like, oh my god, what is that? And then you realize, it's probably just a.
You're not supposed to say, did you hear that? You're not supposed to say that, because I say that all the time.
Well, like the one thing that I learned from Chris Spencer, who does a lot of audio stuff, is like what sounds like somebody tapping on the microphone, right? One of an audio recorder. Let's say you have it, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, that sounds like that's a Bigfoot touching my audio recorder. In reality, a lot of these audio recorders, I don't have a Zoom with me here, but it's on my shelf. They have like a little flashing red light. Or once it's recording, maybe a light is on for the duration of the night. Guess what? Little bugs and stuff, they see that.
Yeah.
What happens? You turn your headlight on, bugs swarm at you. Yeah. So they see this light. So I've had audio where I hear movement in the background, where you hear something moving around, and then you'll hear tapping just all night on the mic. You're like, there's no way.
What the heck?
Until you realize there's probably a much more common sense explanation that it's just a bug messing with your mic. It happens a lot. I've even had them crawling on the mic, and it sounds like somebody's shaking it, but you don't hear anything walk away or come towards the mic. So
that's a good point. That is a very good point, because I don't know if I thought about that when we were listening to audio from out there in Mount St. Helens. So Howler, are you out there? Does your sound thing have a little light on it when it's on? I didn't even. I've never looked at that.
Even the warmth, like because it's on all night. Maybe it's warm. It's a little warmer, so something might try to get on it. But again, that's part of the audio pareidolia, as I call it. Which there's probably a term for pareidolia equivalent of hearing. But because you're sitting there, oftentimes. Audiolia. I've got my eyes closed when I'm listening to audio, so your mind is filling in the blanks for you, as opposed to a visual. You're looking at a visual, and your mind's doing the pareidolia thing. Sure. But at least if there were to be an actual creature come through the video, you'd be able to tell. But with the audio, you're only relying on hearing, and our hearing as humans is not that great. But
it's like sitting there for 7 hours straight.
You want something.
White-tailed deer, you think every little sound you hear, you think there's one coming. But when a deer does finally come in, it just instantly grabs your attention. Like, that's the real deal right there.
Yeah.
Big difference. But
that, like I was saying, when we were out there, Curious Cryptid wants me to tell you about, we had that happen where we had stuck the recorder inside a little crevice in the tree, and when I was reviewing it the next day, I could hear them do their mark where they put it in there and they said, okay, this is this day, it was this, and hear them walking away. And then later you hear the whole something doing that, and I'm like, holy cow, somebody come listen to this.
I get a lot of mice that actually
daddy long legs, could be any kind of creature.
And that's what I was in the end. I felt, well, maybe it was just a mouse running up or down that thing, but you don't know, because your mind wants to say that sounds like somebody picked it up out of the tree and was fumbling with it,
right?
But
Like I said, I mean, I
interesting.
learned that from Chris Spencer. He has a YouTube channel. I don't remember the name of it. Might include his name, but he has some really great videos because this guy spends an ungodly amount of time just looking
Isn't
at
it
audio.
like Tootle
Tootle
Farm?
Valley,
Tootle
something
Valley,
Tootle Valley,
something.
Skookum. It's got Skookum, but I think it's also got
Yeah.
his name in it. But he has videos where he's got owls that will make this noise that sounds like a wood knock. That the only reason he's been able to find that out is he's had almost 365 days of audio recording in one area, and he's listened to every single critter, and you
Yep.
hear all this stuff. So that's just, you're not going to learn that
That's
unless you
awesome.
actually spend the time to kind of look
Yeah.
at that. But
Right.
again, that goes back to like asking other people.
Mhm.
If you're not into audio,
Right.
go talk to somebody who's a
Chipmunks.
total audio nerd.
Chipmunks can make a popping noise with their cheeks too, and it sounds like a knock, you know.
Crazy,
And
yeah. Trees
you
pop.
can look them up.
I mean,
yeah.
yep. Trees will pop when it's hot or cold. That'll happen. And I mean, sometimes I think it's, probably a majority of people, times they think they're hearing wood knocking, it's probably explained away by something else.
Yeah.
So
Good chance, seeing how we can't find the tracks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it all comes to you finding your own way. And I've said it again 100 times. Everybody has their own part in this. I call it community. I will always call it a community, even though it's broken. But there's people who just want to be here just to hear the stories.
Right.
There's people here just to have friends to talk to. There's people here that are true researchers. Some that are just weekend warrior investigators.
Yep.
Armchair researchers. That's where I would consider myself.
You're getting into it though, Nikki. You're getting ready to
catch the field bug.
Yeah, I got the bug, and I'm ready to do that, and I'm starting to spend money, and it's gonna happen. But
well, it's like, as my buddy Beans up in Alaska, who's become a good friend of mine, working with him up there, great dude, very level-headed in this topic too. He said, I'm going to butcher his quote, but he's like, Bigfooting a lot of times, what's the worst that can happen is you don't have anything happen, but you had a good time camping with your friends.
Amen to that.
Exactly.
And that's that's fine too. I mean,
yeah, no,
I don't think a lot of the people that upset us when they come doing all their shenanigans and everything, I mean, if you were to ask them, what does this subject mean to you? What does the discovery of this unclassified primate mean to you? The answer would, probably not be what our answer is. My answer, or you, Alex, or you, Nikki. I mean, the actual physical mechanics to this subject, and the authenticity, the integrity, and the process to get the discovery to a point where it's been named as a species is really important to us. But to a lot of individuals, they'd be just like, I don't even freaking believe in Bigfoot. So like, I don't even give a shit. I'm just out here. Look at, I got like 85,000 views on that last video, man. I'm cranking. And that's, they find their niche and they go for it. So
I think it's interesting too, in terms of like the wider societal effect. I often think people say, oh, if Bigfoot was to be discovered tomorrow, it's going to stop everything. All the wars in the world are going to stop. Everyone's going to take a moment to say, whoa, look at this. And I'm like, I don't think so. Look at the UFO topic. Whatever's going on with the UFO topic, I have no idea, but it's weird. There's a lot of government stuff, but it's become mainstream, right? It's become mainstream, but it's not the front page news. I mean, maybe in the 90s it would have been with the X-Files and all this paranormal stuff, but nowadays even some big alleged soldiers or former airmen coming out and saying we believe it. It's like a footnote in the news because we're consumed with all this other crazy stuff going on. So I think if Bigfoot were discovered tomorrow, obviously those of us who are into it would be ecstatic. There'd be a lot of people who would be like, oh, okay, so it is real. And then they just move on and they focus on their Wall Street
we have to face it. We're not going to be able to put them in zoos. We're not going to be able to put them in reservations. It's they're going to remain as elusive as ever, even if we get one, if we bring one to the table, that it's not going to change a whole lot, because we're
No.
never going to have the Jane Goodall effect. We're never going to have
Well,
somebody who's
don't
going to
say
be able.
never. You never know.
Well,
You
You
never know.
might.
Yeah.
I
when
mean,
you
it
see
might
somebody sitting
happen.
there and watching the whole
Yeah.
family gathering and moving,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. It's not going to
Well,
happen. That part I know. I don't think that's going to happen.
we might come
Um,
into. I mean, Sasquatch have personalities. Well, okay. In my opinion, I feel that Sasquatch would exhibit personalities, and
yeah.
across the gamut, you're gonna get the really nasty bad to the very shy and concealed, and in between the social butterflies and the professors. I would, if that's the case, I think it's a matter of the right people being at the right place at the right time with the right conditions, and possibly have a female with a young that's staying in the area that somebody like yourself, Alex, comes across and has the right contacts, the right equipment, much like the fellas at the 400. That may be the case. I've been waiting for them to say they don't seem like they're in the area anymore. I've been scratching my head wondering, why are they staying in that area consistently?
Right.
But
Well, one
maybe
thing.
it'll happen.
Oh no, go ahead, man.
Maybe there will be a time when, for instance, again, like the 400, if they get enough interaction with those beings, and maybe 3 years from now have started reporting, it seems as if we can just sit out here and they're visible now, just sitting there every now and then looking over at me. But they're not running away and hiding anymore. Maybe it takes 5 years to get to that point, but then finally, maybe there'll be a couple select individuals that will literally be able to stay in a tent out there with one specific person to bring them supplies, and they finally can start interacting and observing from a distance, and they'll accept the camera. Maybe it will happen. I mean,
Yeah, see, that's the thing, though. You would need so much effort and time devoted into that, and there's really nobody. I mean, in the Bigfoot
yeah,
world, that has the time to kind of do that thing. That's extremely
yeah,
difficult. I mean, even us going two
right
weeks
on.
to Area A in Alaska, 2 weeks
Yeah,
is a long time, but that's a drop in the bucket. I will say, I think,
Yeah.
like if there was a discovery, right, what it would open up the door for, I think, is that people who are not interested in Bigfoot, maybe scientists or biologists, would then be able to say, hey, maybe I can get a grant and I can go look and try to live with
mm-hmm,
Sasquatch for 2 years, and they'd
mm-hmm,
have all this funding. That's something that just doesn't exist at the moment.
right.
So that would be a good thing, I think, if a discovery were to happen, is you'd open up the door to people from scientific backgrounds who would be able to jump
Mm-hmm.
in and say, well, hey, we can actually take the time to try and do the Jane Goodall approach to an actual
Yeah,
degree, right? So that would be a cool kind of side effect, I think,
I
of
agree with
discovery.
you 100%.
Even if no one else cared, at least that would be
Yeah,
like, hey, let's make some headway this way.
yeah, it'll definitely open the eyes of the colleges, and they'll be able to legitimately put money
Right.
towards the subject, and then you'll see you know,
Right.
them
So I put a
$10,000 thermals and all of that fancy equipment at Harvard colleges and stuff
Right.
that are just not realistic for people like us to purchase and
Yeah, because these studies happen all the
maintain ourselves
time
out
with
there.
other
Yeah,
subjects all
with
the
other
time.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
Archaeology
yeah,
digs. I mean, look at some of the how long some of those things do. Somebody finds a
yeah.
piece of a boat in the Mediterranean or in Egypt or something, and you know how much
Mhm.
time, that years on that site, and someone's funding that and bankrolling that. So
I mean,
there would
they'll
be
put
interest
out
in
the
this for sure.
recorders for the birds in the area of a jungle, and then once somebody discovers a bird call that's not been identified, then the colleges will come in, the professors will come in, they'll analyze it, confirm you're right. We got a call that we haven't classified. Then they get their gear and they get their process and their plan in place, and there they go, 8-10 of them down there, and they discover that herd. So it's gonna take that it's gonna take that.
I put a what do you call it? A poll in the chat there saying,
I saw
will
something come up
we
on my
discover
phone
Bigfoot in the next 10 years? Will we discover Bigfoot in the next 10 years? We've got, 35 people in the chat. Only 16 have voted. What are you afraid of? It's a click yes or no. It's simple.
So is that question, will Bigfoot be classified? Because when you say discover...
Just discover, just brought, it would have to be a physical thing, right? It would have to be, because pictures and videos aren't ever going to be.
Within 10 years. Boy, I'll tell you listen to some of the old boys that have been doing this for 50, 60 years, and I know what their answer is. No, hell no.
Yeah. Ask a Thomas Steenberg or something.
They thought it was going to happen 30 years ago.
I remember a few years ago when I was at Bluff Creek, and I was sitting there. We were sitting on this cliff, and we were just talking, myself and Tate and Eli and a couple people I was with. And I'm like, man, think about it, right? It was the late 1950s. You had Peter Byrne. All these people were sitting here in the same place we are, and they were thinking, we are around the corner of discovery. We'll be here for a few weeks, and we will prove this thing is real. They thought that. I'm thinking, man, we're almost 50-something, 70-something years later, still having the same conversation. So it kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah.
So it looks like we've got 64% yes and 35% voted no.
Interesting.
That was just 17 votes. So it is. I mean, and it was really close for the middles, right in the beginning. It was.
I'm hopeful.
Half and half.
The answer to that would be no.
I would say, I don't know. I probably lean more towards a no myself, but I would hope so. I mean, you really hope that there's some, especially with technology getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, is it a question of will technology catch up to it? Whereas Thomas Steenberg also says, it's your duty to not only try to see if the Sasquatch is real, but what if the possibility it isn't real? I mean, I know there's those of us that have seen, that have had encounters. I mean, I've never had a visual. I've had nothing I can say is 100%. So I don't know. I'm still not at the 100% level. But as Thomas says, it's also your duty to kind of debunk the Sasquatch if there is not.
It's like absolutely, absolutely. I think we find ourselves doing that more often than not. I mean, if you're really serious in this subject, then that's your go-to. I mean, peel away the layers. What could it be? It could be this. It could be that. It could be this. It could be that. You're always explaining away your find, hoping that you're left with, well, it's none of those. What could it be? And now you might have something if you can't explain it.
That's a good point, Chris.
And Kaiju says it's not technology that'll do it. It's just we need to be more people staying in the woods longer.
And as we said, that just isn't happening really.
It's hard. Yeah. I thought about asking one of my big contractors, Prime Construction. I was thinking about talking to Paul and saying, "Will you guys sponsor me for just 1 year? Just 1 year." But I will not go do that or ask that question because I would want to know for sure that there's actually Sasquatch where I'm at. And I can't even prove that yet.
Right.
So I wouldn't ask anybody to dump a bunch of money into me unless I was certain that I could at least be given a legitimate chance to produce results, be it that the probability of a Sasquatch or Sasquatches being in the area is,
Well, that's interesting you say that because you have people out there or even groups that say we go out there and we have experiences every time we go out.
Yeah.
Every day we go out, we see them. We have recorded them. You see pictures of blurry stuff that you don't know what it is unless it's circled, which is not good, folks. You can take as many pictures as you want, but if you can't look at it and see what you're looking at, the photo's no good. Okay.
Right.
You just
Pareidolia
hold on to
galore.
it.
Yeah.
Just hold on to it. That's your personal thing. Just hold on to it. You don't have to post it on publicly.
Well, I
Yeah.
think
Because
like
that's just going to give you a lot of grief.
yeah,
Because once you post something publicly, anybody is allowed to look at it, talk about it,
screenshot it even if you delete
anything
it.
they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Okay, you do not have a privacy on a public
Right.
site.
Right.
So just
Yeah,
be
I mean,
aware of that.
Unless they're extremely disciplined. I mean, the problem with going out with a group of people that are into the same thing you are, you're going to feed off each other, and that may influence your perception. And you may hear the
Right.
same noise, but then what I heard, it sounded bipedal. Yeah, I agree. It does sound bipedal. You got to be able to pump the brakes and say, no. We have no idea what that was, unless we were
Right.
able to say that scream is a fox scream, and I know that because
Right.
we can compare it to this fox scream that we have recorded. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, part of it is the thrill. They just they want to get out there with a
Mhm.
group of people, and there's a ton of wishful
Right.
thinking. There's no denying that at all, and it's happened to all of us. I mean,
You
even
have
people
to
that don't want to
remain
admit.
skeptical when you're
Always.
out in the
Always.
field. Bigfoot is supposed to be the last thing
Mhm.
that it is. Okay.
Yep.
And Sharon has a quick question. Do you think it's possible Sasquatch use underground tunnels to get around?
Could be.
Maybe.
I personally don't. I don't necessarily think so. I think
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough of that kind of stuff. I mean, even in a place like West Virginia or Kentucky, where you've got some of the largest cave systems in the world.
Texas, we've got them running all over.
Yeah, you guys have them. You'd expect. I don't know. I just think it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because of how dark those places are. Even if
they're not very habitable, really.
Pitch black, seeing in pitch black is one thing. I mean, even animals that are nocturnal, they need some kind of light to feed off, right? If there's a little bit of light, yeah. So, and then for a primate,
with bats that do guano, and guano is toxic. Okay, not a whole lot of animals can live with them in that environment unless
very
they're
high
insects.
nitrogen.
right?
Yeah. Most insects can thrive off of that, but
Mhm.
mammals cannot. They tend to, if they get stuck in that, guess what? They die. You go into these cave systems and you see bones of animals because they wandered in there
And they couldn't get out.
They couldn't get out.
Maybe they got trapped in a cinnabar mine. Don't mess with the cinnabar.
Right on.
The most delicious sounding toxin on earth.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines like, I had thought, if you'd ever trapped, or maybe you just heard about it, but there's these beavers in the Schroon River called a bank beaver. And I was taught that they were a little bit different than a pond beaver. That's hindsight. But what they would do is bore a hole in the banks, sand, dirt, or whatever, and go up in there and make their den. And me and Jeff Jordan, we used to walk the Schroon River, and we'd trap them, and they were bigger than pond beaver for whatever reason. And so I had thought to myself, jeepers, I'm out there around all these trout ponds and stuff. How hard would it be for these Sasquatch to dive in the water, slip into the water, go down on the edge of the pond and dig under and burrow under the ground up inside it? They have to be able to do that if a beaver can do that. And then pull all the material out. They could make one of those things in a couple of days and have a spot to hide or just, hang out in there for the day. I had also thought, as strong as they are, you see those rocks out in the woods that have been pushed around from the glaciers.
Glacial erratics. Oh, man.
Things are the size of a dump truck. None of us are going to move those things up there in the woods without a piece of equipment.
I've got one in the woods near my house, and it's like the size of 2 school buses stacked
Just
up. It's crazy.
Like it came from outer space. Well, you get 2-3 great big full-grown Sasquatch, if they're as strong as everybody thinks they are. They could push that thing up in the air and have the little ones. Maybe they bored out a little den and a house down in there, then just set the rock down nice and easy. You never even seen its move they're safe down there, and that one takes off and watches out over the other ones. I mean, this is all hypothetical.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just ideas flopping around my
as good as any other theory, because there's not a lot to go off of, right?
You know,
yeah.
I mean, tunnels, I wasn't thinking like journey to the center of the earth.
I've heard people say like, oh, there's tunnels that go from one side of the country to the other, and that's how they get around. And I'm like, that sounds that just sounds crazy to me. I mean, subterranean worlds are very inhospitable. But yeah, you can see like with those glacial erratics, how to the natives, to them, some of the stories are, oh, these were put here by giants. Because in their worldview, I mean, they lived in an area, they didn't know what the glacier was necessarily, that it would have dropped this giant rock off. So in their worldview, it was giants that had maybe dropped them or put them there. I mean, that's okay. It's all about our interpretation, I think, at the end of the day, how we choose to interpret things. And obviously, ancient cultures, they have maybe what to us modern times is fanciful way of interpreting things, right? But nonetheless, they're just trying to explain their surroundings. That's what we're trying to do, right? We see a stick structure in the woods, and I think a lot of people, especially nowadays that are not familiar with the woods or bushcrafting, they're like, oh my God, this was a Sasquatch. I mean, I see it all the time. I've had somebody say these were Sasquatch structures in a state park or a state forest, and you could literally sign up for bushcrafting classes in that very state park. Right. And I tell them, hey, you know, this could be these bushcraft people. Oh, no, this is way off the trail. Where do you think people are going to make? When I was doing lean-to and debris shelters, I wasn't doing them next to a trail. I wanted to get in the woods to sleep somewhere quiet away from it. But if people want to believe, I don't know, there's not a lot you can really do.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do to change anything like that.
You can rip your hair out and try to convince them.
People
unless
are
they're perceptive.
That stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, we don't know. Bigfoot makes stick structures unless you see it or record it. You know,
that is correct.
We don't. I don't have any knowledge of anybody saying, I saw the Bigfoot make this structure. You know, I still.
You know what I am learning though? Something that I am learning over the last few years, you know, reading in the books and listening to, you know, what I would perceive as a fairly credible encounter by fairly incredible or, you know, individuals that don't have a reputation of bullshitting people. Sorry about the language, but you hear this repetitively. When encountering a Sasquatch, as they meander around you or go away, how they're snapping trees, breaking. All he did was break trees and snap them, and he was thrashing trees. And then you watch, and you know, mountain gorillas, and luckily we can see them on film and what they do when they get all wound up and they're jumping around and grabbing a hold of trees and knocking them down, and just sometimes casually climbing up the tree and hanging off of it, and it bends down and snaps off. So
it's not even just primates that do that though. We've they've seen moose go and straddle trees to get to the shoots on the top. Sure. And we've seen bears.
Black bears will go up saplings, and they can bend them down. And see those arches people say they find. There's videos online.
All kinds of things that create that, you know.
Well, my point was more just the fact that there is a lot of reports of primate behavior in Sasquatch with breaking and affecting the tree material when they get excited, anxious, or whatever their emotions may be. They don't just stand there or like dig at the ground like a big bull that's going to charge you. I don't know, maybe they do, but they seem to grab trees to show strength and emotion. You know, he had a hold of the tree and he was just swaying back and forth. The thing ran away and started breaking trees the whole time he was going away. I read it in John Bendernagel's book, The Discovery of the Sasquatch. There's a lot of accounts in there, and Paul Bartholomew's book with multiple accounts in the northeastern area.
Right.
Yeah, Paul's one of my favorite researchers.
Yeah, you read them stories, and one thing that's consistent is when somebody encounters a Sasquatch, if that is the case, they keep reporting that the Sasquatch are breaking trees. It seems to be very consistent in the readings. So
Yeah, I have heard that.
Right.
Why
Some of the
they do
reports.
is,
I don't know.
I only have
Let's,
one sighting I know of where there was a structure involved, but it's
Okay.
not the kind of structure you would even expect. And
Right.
it was, and I'll just go over it really quickly. I was trying to find it in my database because I talked to this guy in like 2016 on the phone. I don't know if he's still alive. I think he passed away, but it was 1979 in the Ossipee Mountains in New Hampshire, and he was prospecting, and they were looking for different types of minerals and quartz, a lot of granite and stuff. And they came across this stone structure with stacked stones and like a hemlock roof, and that there was this. They said it was the back of a gray-haired creature with knotted, matted fur sitting in the structure. The dog noticed it, started growling at it, and this thing let out some kind of guttural noise, sent them running down the mountain. And they didn't get a picture of it, but this was in the 70s. But I remember talking to the guy, and he's like, I don't know what it was that I saw. It was weird. So I don't even know if that's necessarily a Sasquatch sighting, but I came across an article that somebody had talked about. It was a weird one because he went back a year later to that same spot, and there was nothing there, like where the exact same spot.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm hoping to go bushwhacking to that area at some point. I mean, it's been so long, you probably wouldn't find anything, but
Yeah.
a very weird story. But that's the only one I'm aware of where there's any kind of structure involved. Now, that doesn't sound like
Right.
your typical structure that people are describing, which are pretty
Well,
rudimentary. This was like a
Right,
full-on
right.
hut, apparently.
Nice.
Weird.
Let me get to a couple of questions here. Kaiju Ninja asks, do you think Bigfoot would be considered as a hominid and they would have rights?
They definitely are going to be given rights, not that they'll understand them, but that's just the way the process is.
Like any
when
other
there
animal.
is a new-
Yeah.
When there is a new discovery, especially of that magnitude, a bipedal primate,
Good point.
they have to go through the process, and they will have some type of rights. And there'll be rules and regulations that'll be put in place that forestry will have to follow. Industries abroad will have to follow those rules.
That's a good point. There'll definitely be some kind of. I mean, I imagine, again, I'll bring up the example I brought up earlier. If Sasquatch were to be discovered in the Cascade Mountain Range in Washington, they would probably say, okay, this is a vulnerable. They have that scale rating where it's endangered, vulnerable, extremely endangered, or extinct. So there's like a classification scale. So animals that are the least concern get put on the other side of the scale. I'd imagine they'd fall somewhere in that scale, just because of. Yeah, they only say it's only in the Cascades. Again, you'd have to establish if it was present in other places with further specimens. But then you think about animal rights. I mean, you can't go poaching. There's a lot of hunting regulations. Something like this obviously wouldn't be on the menu for hunting. Very few places predators are even on the menu. I mean, you've got out some states out west, Alaska, you can do bear hunting or cougar hunting, but mostly it's the deer, the moose, elk, that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
Come to Texas, you can hunt anything.
Yeah, well, if you're a hog,
They bring in stuff from Africa for you to hunt over here.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, but I think that this would because I don't know what rights apes have. Like if primates in the U.S., if they're a pet, or if they kept it in some kind of zoo. I'm sure. I don't know if they have legal rights,
Every
but
state's different. They all.
if you were to kill one just for the fun of it, you're probably going to get some animal cruelty charge. You'll get some kind of either jail time or a fine for that kind of thing. So
well, you have different counties all over in Washington and in New York that'll have their own little laws about doing that. So
and then there's the one in Oklahoma where you can go hunt them, right?
right. You can
It's
get
like
a
a
permit
touristy thing,
and go do all that.
Yeah, right.
Go check out my show. I did a whole show on those.
Yeah,
those
that's funny.
It's called, I think the law, Bigfoot law or something. I think I put it on there. So go check that one out. Donald Fuller says, do you think the level of hoaxing will increase after discovery?
Maybe.
That's a good question because
that is a good
it could go either way, right?
Hoaxing is just on the increase in general. I think it's just there's no stopping that, especially with the AI stuff. But maybe that will increase it because somebody will say, well, hey, maybe maybe I can get scientists some of that science money instead of, you know, that TikTok money. I can get science money now out of it.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, has there been? I'd be curious to
Uh,
know. Has there been hoaxes with other endangered animals or endangered species that are on the verge of
Yeah.
discovery?
Good
I
point.
need to. Yeah, that makes me interested now.
I don't know. I don't know.
There are people hoaxing like tortoise sightings where they're endangered in certain places. I don't know.
It'd probably be a little more
They
upper level, like
Yeah.
organized crime type thing, more
they
than
hoax
like
the
just social
thylacine, you know.
media,
Yeah.
general public.
Tom Biscardi's going to use his mafia connections to get a Squatch sample on the black market or something.
You know what I was
That
thinking the
comes
other
into
day?
ethics, that right there.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
I was thinking, you know, it would be like a long-term project, but you know, I mean, if we just can't get folks in the scientific community to get on board and really, you know, pull some resources and money and equipment and come out and give us a hand, which that is starting to happen. And it happens a lot more than I had thought 2 years ago. My overall perspective is that they are starting to engage. It's just being done quietly in the background.
Yeah.
With
just to an
respect
extent,
to
yeah.
their job, I understand that. So
Incognito.
I feel better. But I was thinking, well, so if some of you young lads could start having kids, and then, hey, you know, you're going to be a wildlife biologist, and that's it. You're that. In 30 years, if we can get 20, 30 of you, we'll flood the system with
Yeah, right.
pro
Dad, I don't
Sasquatch
wanna
wildlife
be.
biologist.
Look, Harvey Dent says they're hoaxing owl in California to save the forest.
Was that with the spotted owl? But I don't know. I thought that was
know.
established. I'm not sure.
They're hoaxing owl in California to save what forest didn't burn, I hear.
I thought maybe you meant Forrest Galante, because that guy is very interesting. He's done a lot of. He's discovered multiple extinct species. He's had a show, but he's like a real wildlife biologist.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to show you what common folk will do. You have, you know, folks. Let's see, up here we call them tree huggers, and I mean no offense. That's just a name, you know. And then you have your, you know, you have your guy at the party getting pissed off at the tree hugger, saying, "Well, what do you wipe your ass with? You don't want us to cut down a tree, but yeah, blah blah blah." But when they get together and are compassionate for something, they can cause and raise a bunch of havoc. And
Right.
you know, it's not that hard to get a big group of people together when their thoughts are aligning. And if the thought is that, you know, take for instance supernatural Sasquatch and all the aspects with that versus the primate bipedal side, those people will gravitate to that. And then they're on social media, on YouTube, creating videos. They're feeding each other. And, you know, I can see where they, you know, can cause quite a ruckus.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah.
But
good question.
Coming back to this ethical question here, it's really important, you know, that if you're going to do, I can't even say it because, you know, not to hoax, right? I mean, I can say don't hoax.
But people will,
but
you know,
people will anyway because they don't care.
I think about it all the time.
You nailed it right there. They don't care.
They don't. They see the end
to them like it is to us.
Well, the thing is, to them, a lot of these hoaxers, Bigfoot is not something they're passionate about. They care about, like you just said.
They might not even believe in it.
If they're not doing Bigfoot, maybe they could be doing another hoax. Like to them, it's just it's an ends to a means, right? Bigfoot is just the vehicle to get them some kind of notoriety.
Right
they could be doing the same with ghost topic. Plenty of people do, or aliens, or any other topic, whether it's paranormal or not. But then you think about the ethical side, and I always think to myself, you know, why would? And sometimes I've had this cross my mind when I've talked to certain witnesses and people that maybe there's some things that don't line up, and I'm like, man, why would this person lie to me? I wasn't raised that way. It doesn't make sense. But then you think about the amount of people that do crimes and criminal activities. I mean, I'm a huge fan of like
A
crime
lot of bad
shows, the
apples.
mafia.
Right.
You think
Sure.
about it,
Yeah.
people are always feeding off each other, and they're feeding off of each other's gullibilities and all the other
Mhm.
things, and
Mhm.
abusing other people. They have no ethical consideration. So you just think about the wide range of what humans are capable of doing to each other,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
hoaxing
yeah.
is just it just fits right into that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a strange thing, I suppose. It's unfortunate because
Yeah.
then, of course, as we talked about, those of us that are into it and
Mhm.
actually, want to further the topic get kind of have to deal with all the crap,
And
and
then you have an open-ended subject like, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and it's a breeding ground for them personalities.
Right.
yes,
You
yeah,
know?
Well, there's even something that I'd like to point out is that people find it easy to allow themselves to make up stuff. Okay,
right,
meaning they have no intention of hoaxing. They have no intention of fooling anybody. Okay, which is your definition of hoax, right? You have to have the intention of pulling the wool over somebody's eyes.
Yeah, you're
But there
misleading
are
everybody.
people out there
Yeah.
who um
they're fooling
they're
themselves.
fooling themselves. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what I was
that's
going to
that,
say.
and that's whether it's Bigfoot on the brain or
Yeah.
they're just kind of running with, oh my God, that sound I heard. There's only the absolutes. There's only one thing that could have been. It was a
Yeah,
Sasquatch. It's like, I
exactly.
mean, unless you're able to prove it,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things it could have been that
Right.
most likely probably not a Sasquatch, but people want to believe so hard or they just delude themselves. I don't know.
Yeah.
But to answer
Yeah.
that question, I haven't been to
Oh.
Nordegg. I know you probably have a
Uh-huh.
question.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
drove
yeah.
I drove through Alberta when I was coming back from Alaska this summer, but we just camped there for like a night. We were going into Jasper National Park and Banff.
Mhm.
Beautiful area. Looks awesome, but I have heard Nordegg.
Well, I heard that I think Alberta Sasquatch is going to have a conference this year up near Nordegg,
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
really? Wow.
possibly in August. So,
Beautiful area. When I was there was a lot of haze from the forest fires, so
oh
we were in
yeah,
Jasper and we didn't get a lot of the good views, but I can only imagine without the fires how nice it would have been. I mean, that whole Rocky Mountains area is just incredible.
Are those fires over with now? I mean,
I think so. Yeah,
They're
I think it was a
over.
summer thing. I know it was like when I was driving on the Alaska Highway back from the Yukon into British Columbia, we were like a few miles away from a fire because I had this app.
Mhm.
It was a BC fire app, and I could tell where I was from the fire. We were a couple miles from it. It was like an apocalyptic scene. I mean,
Wow.
the skies darkened. It was this orange color. I couldn't believe it, and it happened. And then you drive out of it, and you're back into normal
Back into
or
clean air.
not clean air, but it's a hazy. But the
Right.
sky turns dark. So there was
Wow.
like so many of them this summer in Canada, and I guess all over the place. But crazy.
We were
Anyway.
getting it here in the, well, I mean, Alex. I mean, there was,
Yeah.
depending on which way the wind was blowing, it would get pretty hazy around here as well.
Yeah, we'd get it here too. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
So, the last question: are we asking the right questions? Are we doing the best we can with what we got? Do you think we're doing the best we can do in the subject?
Maybe, maybe not. I think it depends. I mean, I think unfortunately the subject is beholden to a lot of the kind of the tropes that are associated with it, and with the online scene, you have just a lot of misinformation. So a lot of people go off that stuff. Just because How to Hunt said it suddenly it's fact, or it's this person MK Davis said this, and that must mean it's true. I don't know. Maybe we aren't coming at it. I know personally, I try my absolute best when I'm out in the woods, but I can only vouch for myself. And I've been out with Jonathan,
Yeah.
and he's an extremely dedicated guy. I've been out with Steve Coles and so many other people, some people in the chat too. And that people are trying, but I don't
Joe's
know.
asking if you've been with Justin Chernopinski.
I have. I've actually known him for a few years, and for some reason, I mean, he was actually supposed to come be a guest at our Monster Fest event last year in Ohio. That's where I met Finding the Trackway at, actually. he was supposed to come, and I talked to Justin, and when I was going to Canada, I was messaging him before. I'm like, hey man, I'm going to Canada. We've been talking about collaborating for years, even before I was doing the STM stuff, because people have mistaken us. Actually, they said, "Oh, it's like two bearded Slavic guys in the woods with like Eastern European names." It's believe me, we've both gotten it. And then he just ghosted me. I've not heard anything from him. No, he was supposed to be a guest at our event, and he just never got back to us. So, and it was weird. I don't know. So I don't know. I know he dropped off the radar and wasn't doing videos for a while, but I haven't talked to him since at least like April because he just didn't respond. So I would have liked to, because I thought he was one of the first people I started talking to in this topic.
Right.
8 or 9 years ago, because he had this very cool approach. I thought it was very
he had amazing documentaries and honesty, I felt. So
I just saw a notification come up he just recently posted a video, and when it came up, I had thought to myself, wow, that's been a long time since I've seen a notification come up from him.
Tristan brings up a comment too. He says, yeah, I had him on my show a few years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, and we got along great. I mean, very well. Again, I don't know what happened, and
life, it's life. Remember, we're not getting a whole lot of money for this type of subject usually. Yeah, right on. You have to work. So, you young guys are out there getting married and starting families and having to work. And, I can see where it can be kind of straining.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I totally get it. Yeah.
For sure. But, any last comments on the topic? We did a really good job. It was a great conversation. We covered a lot of topics. And what do you think, though, Jonathan?
Well,
asking the right questions?
Am I asking the right questions? Well, I would hope so. I mean, I try as hard as I can, and I, take the honest approach, but I fully accept that I've got a long ways to go yet. I think all of us, no matter what level you're at, have lots more to learn, and can just keep sharpening our skills and ask all the questions you can possibly ask. I mean, no question's a bad question.
Don't be afraid to ask any questions. I mean,
and I'm guilty of that. And I constantly have always been feeling like, maybe like the first year I was into this, I was just writing, La La Land, drinking the Kool-Aid, and then, gonna do a video, and this is so cool, and I'm out here in the woods, and I love this, and yahoo. But it wasn't long for, realize the seriousness of it, and actually, that's kind of who I am. I mean, I'm an alpha male. I run a company. I'm a leader. And so it was natural for me to kind of get my hand wrapped around this thing quick and recognize the individuals that were taking it very seriously and be like, okay, that's really going on here. This isn't all just a bunch of, movies and show and flashy stuff. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think just personally, we talked about the personal journey aspect of it. That's a big part of it for me. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really control what other people are going to do. No. You can only control your own thing. You got to find if you do want to work, I know people that work alone, that's fine. But if you do want to work with other people, find people you think you can trust, and I don't know, go from there. But I don't know. My approach is just, even sometimes when I get frustrated with the topic, or there's I get 50 people will send me the Colorado train hoax when that was going on. It's like, you get really annoyed at that kind of thing. Right. You just realize I can just disconnect from this, and I can just focus on the immediate project I'm doing. I can talk to these people and focus on that aspect. And I mean, that's all you can really control. I think we get frustrated a lot with the state of things. And I mean, it's like an insane asylum. As Renee DeHinden would have said, the inmates running the asylum, or Thomas Steenberg. I don't know which one of the two said. I know they both, I think, probably said it at one point, but it is like that. But it's only as insane as you make it, I guess. The world is a crazy enough place without the insanity of the Bigfoot topic. I mean, there's a lot of things going on right now that are very concerning. But I think it's I guess how you interpret it and how you choose to let it affect you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any wisdom or anything. That's just my personal philosophy. So
Right.
do it
That's
the way
good.
you're gonna do it. But
Nikki, I
Just
wrote
keep
this.
doing it. What?
I
What
wrote
you got?
this today in for your show, The Drive to Discover Bigfoot, because, like I say, sometimes my brain don't put out the right words. I get a little,
We
yeah,
are going over, folks. Just so you
yeah.
know, we're going over. Okay.
Oh, we're going over. All
We're
right,
over.
uh-oh.
We're already over. But
we're over.
I still have a bunch of shit here to talk about. So
Oh goodness. Well,
if I prepared it, I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't need to read this if you want to go
No,
over.
no, go. You're
All
on now.
right.
I have to
All
hear.
right. Here we go. The drive to discover Bigfoot. I've often given thought to the drive to discover Bigfoot. I suppose it really depends on what grabs your attention early on. Then, are you able to decipher the good from the bad? But what's good and what's bad? In my opinion, one should start with the main topic. The main topic here is the drive to discover Bigfoot. And the question is, how do we go about discovering Bigfoot, and what is the driving force that consumes our minds or consumes the minds of many involved? For some, the discovery process is supported by an education in wildlife biology, anthropology, or primatology, just to name a few. And while there are no current limitations restricting the average citizen from engaging in wild, adventurous explorations deep into our country's unforgiving forest, the discovery process finds itself vulnerable to the undereducated individual's ability to observe, analyze, and come to the conclusion they are not aware of the proper steps to be taken when engaging in the discovery of an unclassified animal. Now, whether a person decides to take the path of education or simply wades in the amazement of all aspects created in this subject, it is quite apparent it becomes very obsessive, to say the least. For so many out looking for Sasquatch Bigfoot, the thrill and the amazement lies in their own personal interest. It begins with the very first time you view a video or of Sasquatch or read an article or book about Bigfoot. For others, it may have been a full-on sighting of Sasquatch Bigfoot or an encounter while in the woods that scarred and scared you for life. And now you want answers. Like, what the heck was that? There are many different variables to consider when asking oneself, why am I out here looking for something most say are non-existent? Well, whatever your reason may be, whatever you deem most important to your own personal quest for this undiscovered being we call Sasquatch Bigfoot, one thing is for certain, it drives us. To expend great amounts of our valuable time searching for what we as individuals feel is important to our own discovery process. Whether you're educated in the subject, actively learning, or just excited to be part of it in any way, in my opinion, the driving force that pushes us to seek more information is worthy of respect. In my short time involved in this subject, I've noticed how easy it is to get influenced by observing or listening to another person's videos or words spoken. In my opinion, I think some believe they too could simply head out into the vast forested areas of North America and or around the world, living out the sensation they feel when watching other more skilled investigators / researchers' adventurous findings while searching for trace evidence of a non-existent North American primate. Or perhaps you're more interested in the supernatural side of the subject. Either or, I don't think people understand the magnitude of what goes into a 10-minute video or into a 1-hour documentary. They only see the most important periods of time. What they don't see are the hundreds of hours spent finding nothing, the boredom, the long explorations that hurt every muscle in your body, and most of the time for no good results at all. The hours behind the computer screen analyzing the different types of information, storing the information in a manner to be extracted and shared with others when called for. The disappointments, the setbacks, or the failed attempts to produce results. So I would like to urge others to respect the efforts put forth by those whom are trading their time for results. Even if you are not fully on board with what they are sharing, please show respect for the drive to discover Bigfoot. That's it.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Wonderful. Appreciate that.
Sure.
I think we all kind of feel that way for sure. But it was nicely wrote. Thank you.
Yeah,
Let's
very well.
move it on along. I only have a few things in each of my segments here, so it'll go pretty fast.
I love this part.
Show me what you got. Jim, you heard them. Said, show me what you got.
I love it.
Today we've got a couple out there. This one has been floating around out there in the
I've seen it, yeah.
all over, not just in Facebook. Okay, it has been on Reddit. It's been on the news. That actually I took from where is it at? WSET News and Boing Boing site or something. Anyway, so this has been going around, and they kind of wanted to say that it was from Virginia, right? It was where did I write that down? It says here that residents of Wintergreen, Virginia, were surprised to catch numerous glimpses of Bigfoot roaming around nearby mountainous areas, forests, and even outside of homes last month. Wintergreen Police Department received numerous reports of a hairy hominid, driving them to investigate. And this picture was captured. Let me see. This particular article came out January 3rd. Is Bigfoot real or not? We don't know, but Bigfoot sightings in the mountains have increased. Police Chief Dennis Russell told the news it was just a guess, maybe something that maybe got out of hand, but it was all fun and games. I believe most people, 99%, knew it was all in jest because, let's be honest, Bigfoot in Wintergreen, he wouldn't come here. How can we be sure? According to Russell, the sightings just stopped on their own. So, I mean, for me, it's clear it's an AI picture.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it just
Obvious.
looks like it's imposed right there. It's got dark all the way around the outside perimeter and blurry, and the whole thing's fuzzy.
Yeah, the AI. I mean, I've used some of these AI programs.
Okay.
And I'll do in my presentations, I'll do a, like I did one back in November, a presentation here at a local area at this conference. And I did an experiment. And I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to do an AI experiment. And I tell the audience, give me some suggestions. Like, give me a prompt. Blue Mountains, give me a name of a place, Kentucky, whatever, and we'll put that in and type in the description of the Sasquatch, whatever, and create the picture. And for a lot of people, especially the older crowd, they're like, "Wow, you did that instantly! I didn't know it's so crazy. You can do it right on your phone."
They don't know, right? A lot of people don't know that you could do that.
I haven't even tried to. I haven't even turned on my son like when Chat GDP first came out, and before everybody in the community was. That I was aware they were talking about it. My son was telling me about it like a month ahead of time. He's like, "Oh, this is going to change everything." Like I don't even. I've got enough on my plate to mess around with you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do it literally right now. Let's see.
Yeah.
Here, ready? All right, Nikki,
You're right, Trackway. There's
give me a prompt. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Okay. Bigfoot riding a bike, holding a Coke.
All right, let's see if I can get that going. I'm in the app. Imagine.
That's how I do my promos. My promos are all off of Bing AI.
Yeah,
Bigfoot riding it. You said Bigfoot riding a bike?
Yeah, Bigfoot riding a bike with a Coke in his hand.
With a Coke in his hand.
My son made a couple.
We got it typed in there. Now let's hit send. And let's see. It's doing the Mid-Journey bot thing.
Yeah.
Waiting to start. Let's see. It should take a minute here. It's at 0%. Usually, I mean, it goes crazy fast. So that's how crazy it is.
My daughter can get like 3 or 4 different ones for me.
Oh, it's creating the composite. So that's how they kind of first start out. Am I pointing this right? Yeah, there's a bit of a glare.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Almost.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
How crazy. And it'll give you 4 different images, and then you can take one of them and edit it from there. Let's see where it's 62%.
Yeah, because I didn't even say in the forest. So I could have added in the forest, and it would have put the forest in the background.
93%. Okay, it's done. Here we go. And here's the image.
Isn't that something?
So there's 4 different images, and look at that. He's got the bike with the Coca-Cola label. I mean, it's not officially the Coca-Cola label. It looks like Russian writing, but that's their idea. I mean, how crazy is that? That's how quick you can do it. It's unbelievable.
That is amazing. My son made up a couple of them. He tapped in like Bigfoot and Sasquatch Wizard in the Woods or something. He sent me 5 or 6 of them, and I think I just put one in a video that's completed. That I don't know. Whenever I want to put it out, I'll put it out. But it just shows this Sasquatch. I don't know. It's kind of like the stars and stuff behind it, and it's looking at a book. You know, like astrology or something. I was like, that's cool.
Here's another one out of the Star News. This was on January 5th of this year. So a guy accidentally photographs Bigfoot after weird smell and sounds in the woods. That's the title. But this guy thinks he might have accidentally photographed a Bigfoot after hearing strange noises and picking up a weird smell in the woods. JJ Timblin posted 2 images to the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot photos, videos, and sightings Facebook group. One shows him squatting next to a huge tree. Now, see, they mentioned this Facebook group, but I didn't get it from Facebook. I got it from the internet. I got it from a news source.
He's supposed to be sitting next to the same tree where he took the picture?
Well, I was looking at that. I think it's a completely different angle.
I think it looks like the big picture with the alleged creature was head on, and his picture looks like it's to the side because you see the fern and the stump, and that stick that's next to his leg is going horizontally in the original picture. But the story is more vivid than the picture, I will say. I mean, it's looks like a stump squatch to me.
For sure, doesn't it?
I agree.
So he explained that the image was taken in the summer of 2015 in Hoh Rainforest, Washington State.
Oh, yeah, Hoh Rainforest. That's on the Olympic Peninsula. Beautiful area.
During a camping trip. We were camping up there and taking pictures of big trees and ourselves next to the big trees. And this was one of the pics next to one of the trees. I didn't notice, what does he say? I did notice strange noises that day and weird smells. Some people think that JJ might have genuinely stumbled across the elusive beast. The Hoh is real squatchy. Looks like he saw one. Yep. Well, a third added, I like the picture. It could be something.
Hoh is definitely squatchy.
Well, without any video or anything movement, or that's what I'm saying.
Awful convenient that it's from 2015, right?
Right.
And the sad thing is that if there really was a 8-foot Sasquatch in a forested area that was dark in color, it probably would resemble something like that. Maybe kind of hard to make out facial features, especially if it's got some branches in front of it and it's got its arm up or something. You would just I mean, look at normal animals. You see a deer in the woods, and as long as it's moving, you can see it. As soon as it stops, it like disappears. But it's there, and it blinks its eye,
Right.
moves its ear, and then you make it out. Oh my God, it's right there. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
even see that. So, you know,
No.
but
That area looks very Jurassic.
It's
it's
pretty
going to take a
wild.
lot to really, really have the picture that, you know, gets it done. And it's going to be a lot
Oh,
more than
geez.
that. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Is this
Here's
a Thinker
another
Thunker
one.
one or something?
Is it? No, I don't know if
I'm
that
joking
one
because
is.
of the whole Thinker Thunker Buffalo thing.
Oh,
Remember that video?
yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
like a decade ago. Yeah.
This one came off of, where did I get this one off? I think it was Bigfoot Believers. I'm not sure.
Oh, come on.
But it's says, where's Bigfoot Shadow? They said it was from Yellowstone this year, which was 2023 actually, when this
How
first came out.
convenient. They're all popping up with AI now.
And
Yeah,
this,
right.
I actually wrote it. They posted this on Sasquatch Highway, Sasquatch Odyssey podcast, Bigfoot, Sasquatch Chronicles, meme, where Bigfoot Now, Bigfoot Sightings and Encounters. This has been on so many sites that I don't even know who originally posted it where, because it's on so many different
It's
ones.
almost like, you know, there's going to be no way to stop it. But
No,
for
you
like
can't.
the individuals that are legitimately like if you guys presented this picture and said, Jonathan, that might be a real Sasquatch right there. Well, now you got my attention because of who's delivering me that information. Now I want to scrutinize that. Okay,
Right.
what am I going to do with it? Well, I want the original photo so that it can be analyzed. So, you know,
Right.
can we get that? And if it's not, then I would just have to say, no, I've got better things to do than to waste my time staring at that if I can't have the original photo with the metadata. But now I'm hearing that AI is going to be able to make up metadata.
Yeah, how
photo?
crazy is that? That's,
I mean,
like I said, it's very concerning. But you see something like, you saw how easy I was able to just create that image
Yeah.
we just came up with. You could have made it more realistic. I could post that into a few Facebook groups, and I guarantee you, a lot of people will say, "Oh, this is AI, it's fake." There's plenty of people that will do that, but I guarantee you that photo will also get shared into other groups, and people will be like, "Oh my God!" I mean, there was one that I came
Amazing.
across a few months ago, and it was like a skeleton of a Bigfoot, and they're like, "Oh my God, look at this photo! Like it's a dead Bigfoot." And I created one and posted in the comments. I said I was just able to make the same thing, and they're like, "No, no, no! This photo's been online since the '80s." I'm like, really? I don't think that's true at all. But this one is different because this looks like they took an actual photo of buffalo, real buffalo, and just put in an AI Bigfoot in there. So maybe that was a little bit of Photoshop on their part. So,
right.
you know, at least that's more creative than just using the AI app to.
I know,
together.
right? Yeah, that one will be.
I wonder if Steve Calls can run that. Oh, here's a question for you. All right, that software forensically. I think Steve Calls, you know, he did a show where he was testing one of Todd Standing's pictures through that software or something similar to that, and was pointing out to everybody, well, you know, do you see how this is lit up around here, and the distortions, how his software could depict whether it was real or whether it wasn't, or are we able to obtain that type of software, or is that off? You know, you can't get it over the counter. I mean, does the general public have forensic analyzation software for video and photo available to the average John?
Actually, there's a new website, a new product that is coming out that you're supposed to be able to drop a video in, and it's going to tell you if any part of that video has anything recreated or stolen from somebody else.
Okay.
And it's going to tell you, what else was it? Oh my gosh, I had this on my show probably a year and a
Okay.
half ago. But it was in the making to help you find where the original source of the video comes from.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a forensic of a video. It'll tell you if it's
Mhm.
been duplicated, been out, or where it originated from. It's going to pull all the pictures and snapshots out, and it can be used for comparison. And I think the primary use was going to be used for universities to be able to tell if somebody was for what do you call it?
Cheating.
Cheating, yeah.
Yeah, the chat GBT type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, whether
That's
or
been
not
banned at a lot of schools, actually.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do the work. For
But-
crying out loud. Learn how to run a pen.
So this photos right here came out
Or
of
type. I mean, yeah.
Weber Canyon, near Oakley, Utah.
You know, I can understand
January
why the
6th.
scientists don't want to get involved in this subject. When I was just caught myself thinking, with all this AI and all that, I don't even have the energy to try to figure out how to decipher it. I would count on somebody else like you, Nikki. That's, you know, I support you 100%. Just let me know if you think it is or isn't, right? Because but
It's
outside
always
of
good to
that,
question, okay?
it's
good to
almost like
question.
I don't even, if Alex sent me a picture and said, hey, I just I got a 5-second, 15-second video. What do you think? Well, yeah, I want to see that, because I'm not even thinking in my head that this guy's going to send me some AI generated
Right.
crap. So I could
Yeah, that would
feel
be
myself
disappointing.
becoming isolated to just select people that I can trust. Where, well, the professors and the scientists were probably thinking that 20, 30, 40 years ago, going, oh my God, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. You know, I mean, I'm sure they looked at the Patty film, and that's been scrutinized, and that's one of our best pieces of, you know, trace evidence to the existence of Sasquatch that I know of. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can understand
for
their
sure.
perspective, because I'm starting to feel like that now. Like I only want to, there's a lot of time and effort that gets put into this, and we have to trade most of our time for our loved ones and family, and the rest of it to work so you can pay your bills. Only leaves a small portion of time you can trade for this subject, right? I definitely will not be spending it trying to figure out whether that's a Bigfoot standing out there with them buffaloes.
Yeah. You lose time on stuff like that. Whereas
I'm not gonna do it.
some people focus on that. Like that's
They
like
focused a long time. I did not focus. I was like,
No.
oh my God, that was
yeah,
AI,
it's
and
once
put in
it's
a
especially
picture.
once you know,
Yeah.
once you know what to look for, it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. Why even waste time with this kind
Right.
of stuff?
Right.
But people, they're gonna fall for it no matter what. So
And
kind of
there
an
will
uphill
always be
battle.
ones that will fall for it.
Yep.
They're
Right.
always
I'm
gonna
just
be.
I
here
mean, people
to
fell
help
for
you.
Rick Dyer twice, right? Like Rick
Oh,
Dyer. There
3
are
or
people
4 times already. Yeah, no, it's
I mean,
more
like,
than that. It's
crazy.
a lot
You know,
more.
it's like unbelievable.
Nikki, you're like the
Yeah.
regulator on a propane tank. It's got to be there, or it's just not gonna. You know, you can't let it get out of control. So God bless
Yeah.
you. We need you. We
Thank you.
need you
I
to do
thank
what you do.
You know, in light of the mess of the last couple of weeks, I'm still me. I'm still going to continue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's going to be. So if you don't like it, you can find the door. And but
There's got to be a governor
I
on
don't
this
know who
thing.
would
You
like
can't just
talking about
run
this
rampant.
stuff. I love talking about this stuff. So
So
I mean,
here's
look at
something-
this picture here of this foot. Does that not look like the perfect Bigfoot foot?
Also, the
It
toes
looks
look
pretty
very
good.
human-like to me.
They do. Okay, I thought so too. But like too perfect is what I was thinking. It almost.
Why is it
looks
always one
too
photo?
perfect.
It's never more than that. It's like
Uh-huh.
I
I
will
know,
say though,
baby.
one thing. This is unrelated,
Deep
but
breath.
we were talking about forensically, and there is a beta. I was just messing around with it. You go to forensically, they have a beta that you can check out, and it gives you like the metadata on photos, and you can check it out. But I don't know if that's the full version, because I know you mentioned that earlier,
Okay.
Jeff. So
All
I
right.
just Googled that. And I was messing with it, and
Yeah, because when I looked into it, it was just it wasn't available to the common person as I was reading it. It's
Why do Bigfoot toes not freeze off in the winter? When we can easily get frostbite,
They make little moccasins and wear them.
They migrate.
I don't know. Just the thought came up of those cold toes right there. Sorry.
Yeah, they need hooves like a moose or something.
Oh, geez.
Maybe they're.
Okay, let's move on to the news. We have got Playbill. It says that Alex Newell, Justin Guarini, and Bonnie Milligan more set for Bigfoot the musical. Are you guys ready for Bigfoot the musical?
Oh boy!
At 54 Blue, the new musical was penned by Amber Ruffin, Kevin Scaretti, and David Schmoll. So, where did I put what it's about?
It's a Broadway thing.
Very off Broadway. Where does it say? I guess I didn't get it all.
Maybe it'll be up here to Proctor's.
With a book and lyrics, The Bigfoot is a new musical about a horrible small town mayor who has his citizens convinced their problems are the fault of Bigfoot and not his inept leadership. So there you go. That's what's
Scapegoat. Nice.
Yeah.
Blame it on the thing you can't find.
Right. Dog ate my homework. No. Bigfoot messed up the town tax revenue sheets or something.
Yeah.
People
Who
think
did
anything.
They write the score for this? It was
another example of how this subject is blossoming. I mean, you wouldn't see these average folks get involved in making a musical with the
Ruffin and Scaretti.
I bet none of these people involved in this really are. Maybe they're like pop culture Bigfoot fans, but they probably don't care. They're not out there.
That's just it. It's just the name.
Job. They're going to get paid.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Nothing wrong with that. It's just. It's just again. It's interesting as Jonathan's saying how it. How it spread, how the topic has spread to all these places.
Right, completely. Here we've got runners to take the trails in search of Sasquatch. So this is out of Northern State Recreation Area in, oh my God, where? Skagit Valley?
Skagit
Valley. Guess I should have read through this one. Cedro Woolley says, those who participate in the Northern State Winter Trail Run walk searching for Sasquatch might just catch a glimpse of the storied creature. But even if you don't see a Bigfoot at the Skagit County Parks and Recreation Department event, they will still have the opportunity to claim prizes. So they're leaving little Bigfoot figures, and then they can go off the trail, find it, and if they collect so many, they get prizes. That's the whole thing. It's a fun thing. It's a 5K run thing, and that event happens on February 10th, and there are 3 routes to choose from. What else? That's pretty much that story. I don't know. We're going to move on again. So, Bigfoot Times, Daniel Perez put out his Bigfooter of the Year. Bigfooter of the Year, yeah. Mark Marcel. Sorry.
You had my vote, Alex.
Yeah. Is it Marcel?
It's Mark Marcel, yeah.
Mark
Marcel, okay. Yeah, apparently I was a runner-up. I had no idea until I saw a Kark show like a few months ago.
Okay, yeah, you had my vote, man. But not to take anything away from.
No, I think Mark. I actually got that copy last week. Yeah. Mark is and I know Mark personally. He's a really incredible guy, super funny. Last time I was with him at a conference, I mean, I got no sleep the whole weekend. We were staying up till like 4 a.m. just talking all night long.
Oh my goodness!
The guy is a treasure trove of knowledge. He's a land surveyor, so he does all kinds of this stuff. And he's the guy who rediscovered the Ape Canyon story. He told the people who rediscovered the mine were the relatives of the people who were originally involved in the original Ape Canyon story. He kind of let them do that discovery. So he's a really nice guy. And I've had the chance to. I actually stayed at his house in Portland, or it's technically I think it's Vancouver, Washington. He's got like a old family house there, and just a really funny guy. I mean, he's such an awesome dude.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's been Daniel's been doing Bigfoot of the Year for like 27 years or something like that. Close.
Yeah, he's been doing Bigfoot times for a long. It used to be Big Foo times.
I saw him on the Sasquatch archives. And was it Renee DeHaan?
Yes,
giving him a bunch of crap there.
The funniest video, Renee DeHaan blows a gasket. He starts ranting. I remember seeing that. That was the first video I ever saw on Sasquatch Archives, because a couple of my buddies sent it to me like, this video is hilarious. Renee DeHaan blows a gasket was the name of the video title.
And I'm not watching this.
It's Renee yelling at like a young Daniel Perez. He must have been in his 20s or something at the time, and he's just getting berated by this weird Swiss guy.
He kept his cool pretty good. I mean, did Renee actually?
So anyway, you got a nice little section about you in here. Just so
I saw that. Yeah, I got a copy of it. And,
okay. Yeah.
No, it's cool. Like he was like, Alex has done some stuff in the Bigfoot topic, but he's also done other topics. And again, it's just, I think Mark is an awesome person, because the Ape Canyon story is it's one of those classic tales, right? There's a handful of those, and it's one of the most well-known ones. So, no one had touched that thing until he came along. People thought it was just a rumor. They were like, there was never a cabin. It never existed. Right. And he went through and did what he does with the surveying stuff and rediscovered it. And he's done some other cool cases. There's another one that
comparative to like the Munns report, what he did with Ape Canyon.
Yeah. So there's another one that Mark is working on. It's Bobo and them are doing a documentary on it, and it's like I forget the name of it. I think it's called the Thompson Flats Monster from Southern Oregon, and it's a case where these miners were found killed, and the story was alleged it was the Thompson Flats Monster. So there was, and they went, and Marcus found, I think, shell casings from the original incident. It was I think it was earlier than even Ape Canyon, but there's a documentary apparently in the works that Bobo was working on with him, that I just know some whisperings of, and so Mark does a lot of cool stuff for sure.
Great. Awesome. That's great. So last one, I wasn't ready for this one. So be on the lookout, guys. Guess where I was? I was on Untold.
Yeah,
Go watch it.
Yeah.
I had a good time, actually.
Yeah, and, that was a great show.
I kept it a secret from all you for like a month.
That's cool.
Because you never know, anything can happen, and they would cancel or whatever, and I didn't want to be like a doof, promoting it all the whole time, and then I wasn't on. So we just let it happen naturally, and it was a great show. We had a great talk, and
awesome.
It was fun. So yeah, shameless plug. Go watch me on Untold. It was fun.
Yeah, it is a great show too.
They do a good job on there.
Show. Yeah.
This is something new. The Bigfoot Roundtable. I am going to be participating in Squatch America's new show, the Bigfoot Roundtable.
Oh, cool.
And our first show is coming up next week, Wednesday the 10th at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be on Squatch America. We are talking about actually promoting it through all our channels by linking all our channels in at the same time. So we'll see how that works out. But for now, go to Squatch America, show them the support, watch from there. And it's going to have myself, Toby Johnson from the Owl Moon Project. And of course, Scott Violet from Squatch America, myself, and Joe, Squatch and Cowboy. No nonsense, gonna be there. So we're gonna have a nice little conversation
Scott and Hannah are really cool people. They're really nice.
I know. I missed my opportunity to meet them up in Cloudcroft during Christmas. And because I had a house full of people and I got sick at the same time, I was like, oh, no, it's not going to happen. So I missed them, but I'm sure they'll come back around this way so we can meet up at some point. But it was, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun. On a side note, I wanted to make sure to let y'all know I'm not doing the hijinks show in the morning anymore. Okay. I'm taking that off my plate. If I decide to bring I have a ton of fun with Enzo doing that show. It's like a talk show in the morning. I'm going to make it its own channel if I bring it back that way, because YouTube doesn't know what to do with me because I have too much shit going on my channel. So
you're right.
I'm going to make it just Sasquatch over here, on this channel. So that's what's happening with that. But you can find Enzo doing all kinds of stuff. He's on everybody's shows, so you don't have to miss out on him there. What did you say, Uncle Bones? Oh, I don't know about that. You'll have to email him and let him know. I don't know. What else? I think we are finally at the end of the show. That's it. We made it. Let me pull this off.
I had a great time.
Awesome time. This may be one of my longest shows I've done in a long time. So.
Yeah.
I held you here. We had a lot to
No,
talk
I
about.
appreciate it. I've been kind of cutting back a little bit on doing podcasts lately, so this was an awesome time for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jonathan. Everybody out there. Appreciate you. Hey, before you leave, hit that like button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys want to hear me talk about. Share it. Please subscribe. Help the girl out. And it's going to be, see you in the next chat. I love you guys. Bye.